Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Are you guys hearing us? Can you see us?
I don't see us live.
All right. Check again. Refresh.
Yeah.
Can you put there, we're live?
Oh, it says we were live. Oh, there you go. What? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll delete it.
Oh, we gotta change the topic.
Jordan, relax.
Topic.
Oh, you're right. Okay, can you please?
What do you need me to do?
I've been telling you this forever.
Great, I got you.
Twitch.tv/ forward slash. / yeah, co-op syndicate. There you go. Enter. All right, the notification just got on, so if anyone followed us, send now. Send now. Thank you. Close that. You just close it. We're not going to use it. All right, now do you whatever you were going to do. Emerald, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the stream.
Emerald's back. All right.
What's up, my dude?
Copy. Let's copy this topic and
yeah.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, as you can see, we did a couple of things in the background, and now we have better mics, and we can finally talk to people, or we don't sound weird. Yeah, man, I'm glad that you've been looking forward to it. And we'd be happy to have you here so you can talk with us about the topics we're going to talk about today. Just so you know, we're going to talk about difficulty in games. So I know that you might have your own gripes that maybe you want to share with us. We're going to start off with,
He did the Dooku quote. He was like, I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, how do I sound? I don't sound like doubled or anything like that, right? Like I sound normal? Just making sure.
Yeah.
Please let me know if I sound normal before we start.
Might be the one sounding double, but I just got to find the right spot to sit.
Sound good? No, he says we sound fine. Okay, so we're perfect.
You sound fine. Me, I hear it myself. I have to make sure I find a way so I don't sound like I'm doubling up.
Nah, I think you're fine. All right, so should we get officially started?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to do a proper intro. I'll just cut off everything beforehand. We're basically eating doo-doo, so... Hey there, guys. Welcome to the second episode of the Co-op Syndicate. I'm your co-host, Michael C. Moore.
And I'm Jordan G. Marcos. Today we're going to be talking about how much difficulty is too much difficulty in a game. So I'm going to hand it off to Mike to get us started with this intro.
Yeah, so...
Thanks, man.
Thank you for that pass off, my friend. Anyways, so what we're going to kind of talk about today is the idea of basically, in games... And we could branch off into multiple types of difficulty later, but essentially, like, what is that sweet spot that as a game developer you're trying to hit when you're trying to design difficulty in a video game? Are we talking about multiplayer type of difficulty? Are we talking about campaign difficulty? Are you making the enemies very spongy? What are the rewards you're getting out of the difficulty? What incentives do people have to play the game? And what's the right balance kind of way to kind of challenge players when they're playing your games? What do you think about that, Jordan? What are there any points that you would like to outline?
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to outline is how we see games like Destiny and Halo where they're shooters, and a lot of times people start playing the games and they feel like when they're shooting, they're not really like effectively fighting the enemy. They're just shooting at a sponge. It becomes like a boring type of experience where you're constantly like shooting at this one guy, trying to take them out, and they can just like overpower you in minutes. They're not flinched. There's no staggering. You can't just shoot them in the leg and a different animation will happen. They just sit there, just stand straight, and then just shoot you down. Then there's also other types of games that take it too far, like Ninja Gaiden and Devil May Cry, which some people might actually consider that a fun challenge. It is true. It is a fun challenge. I'm one of those people. Just so you guys know, I'm going to have a little bit of humility here. I'm actually not a very good gamer, but I do have a good fair amount of difficult games under my belt, so I can at least feel good about being bad sometimes. But you're gonna notice that we're gonna talk about these games like Ninja Gaiden and Devil May Cry, where you see games that have too much difficulty. You know, that they're gonna be something where it's like you're going too fast. You can't tell what's going on. You can't figure out why you're dying or why you can't get past a certain part. And then we're gonna eventually talk about what I think or what I consider to be the most balanced difficult game, which is a Souls series. I don't know if you want to add something here because I see you're looking stuff up.
Yeah, I was just basically looking up the definition of difficulty just to get us started off here, because you know me, I'm a big definition guy.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
when I was in high school, I took debate and stuff because I like, I like defining our terms so that way we could actually have a conversation about things properly. Because if you don't define things, what tends to happen is that you'll tend to talk with somebody and then you'll end up talking about two completely different things. So I just want to get us on the same page, right? Because we have an outline here. We basically we're trying to structure a conversation better this time. And also, I don't know if you guys can tell, but we got better microphones for the podcast as well, so it's going to be a little bit nicer for our listeners, and it's just going to be a lot more professional now. So since we're starting off here, let's go ahead and define difficulty for ourselves. So Google, basically, which is using the Oxford Dictionary, is stating that difficulty is a thing that is hard to accomplish, deal with, or understand. It could be a situation that is difficult or dangerous. And obviously, I think this one's pretty brain dead, but, let's just get it out there. The state or condition of being difficult.
Right.
So, yeah. So essentially, when you're talking about difficulty, what you're trying to capture is that whatever goal or whatever challenge you're facing, it has to be hard to accomplish or deal with or to even understand. So perhaps one way that a video game could challenge you is by trying to see what limits your understandings are of the game, essentially, which can be pretty interesting.
Right. And
anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, this is also going to be a topic that's very controversial, I guess. Hey, what's up, Limes? Thanks for showing up today. So you're going to see that a lot of people around the community are very how do I put it? They're very, how would you put it, Mike? How would you put people in the community in regards to difficulty?
Well, what community specifically?
Just talking about, like, in general, the gaming community.
Are you talking about? Okay, so you're saying about gamers, right?
Hello.
Well, hey there, Beat Mode.
Yeah, like I'm trying to find a word for, like, how to put the community when they get a little, I guess I want to say sentimental or emotional. There you go, emotional about games that are too difficult. So we're gonna see people. I mean, the point of the controversial topic today is, like, when people find something too hard and they're like, oh, this game's glitched or it's broken or it's not balanced, this and that. It's like, we're going to try and find out what, in our opinion, is considered good, fun, challenging difficulty, and what's just like, hey, maybe this needs to be fixed. This goes too far,
Yeah.
So,
well, where you told me, so the thing about gaming, the gaming community, I guess I could say what the average gamer might, the sentiment that average gamers have towards difficulty, but I don't want to speak for the whole gaming community because there's people like games for different reasons.
Yeah, like, it's our opinion. So it's our opinion for today. So I mean, we're gonna talk about it. Like I said, we even picked games that are, in our opinion, what it is, and it doesn't reflect all the games in the modern, today. We're gonna talk about games that we would have. We're gonna talk about games that we've played, at least. There's games that are going to be here that you might not have played because they came out way back in the early 2000s and you didn't start gaming till 2008 or whatever. But we're gonna share our opinion, and then we're gonna see how it reflects on the games that come out today and what doesn't.
Well, so yeah, what I was saying was that I don't know if I can speak to what all gamers like, but I think the average gamer kind of would want something that's not too easy because they would get bored, but also not frustrating, at least, especially if they're not looking for something that's, completely testing their limits in gaming. So for the most part, they'd want something that maybe provides a challenge, but that ultimately maybe after 1, 2, or 3 tries will let them go ahead and get through. Now, that's the average gamer, but you also have to keep in mind that there's gamers that would actually want something that is just impossible to beat almost, unless they have that really tests your limits, pretty much. And maybe that would be made more incentivized if there was actually a good reward for doing that as well.
Yeah, and to go off of what Emerald just said. And
okay, look, so when we're reading something from someone that says in the chat from now on, let's actually introduce it so it's better to listen to.
Oh, yeah, so that's what I'm trying to introduce it.
Yeah, but say it more like I would say it like this anyways. So Emerald on the Twitch chat over here asked, I like when games are difficult, or he stated, I like when games are difficult, but not too freaking difficult to the point where I don't even want to try it.
Right.
So, yeah. Actually, that's a good idea. Why don't you guys in the chat let us know what you guys think about it?
I don't think Splash finished that opinion there.
Yeah,
but anyway, just to point off, it's like we're going to try and find the balance or try to understand what makes a game difficult and fun while it's challenging, and then what's just straight up like, oh my god, I'm going to throw this controller at the wall and break it. Because I know there's people out there that like have zero patience and like just off of playing Dark Souls they instantly throw their PS4, and I'm not naming people here, but I know someone personally who did that. They practically grabbed their console and like destroyed their wall because they couldn't get past a certain portion in a Souls game. So it's just, we're gonna talk about that and like having the right kind of mentality when it comes to that sort of stuff in games. So
yeah, so some of the topics we're going to be exploring today would include should challenges ever be made easier? What kind of players seek a challenge? What level of challenge they're kind of seeking? And what should you get out of playing something that's very difficult as well?
Yeah, so O Rivero here says that From Software games seem to have the best balance of difficulty for him. And actually, I agree with him too, which is why at the end of our hopefully the show we're gonna talk about the Souls series, because I personally believe that they're one of the best balanced experiences when it comes to having challenge in a game. And I believe that off of that, many developers should try and base their game experience from that formula, not necessarily to follow it like copy pasta type of deal, because there are other Souls games out there that do copy the formula. But I want to say like try and inspire that within their game. I want to feel inspired when I play a shooter or a slasher or an RPG, that I'm using my toolkit and what I've learned from the game to do better. I don't want to feel like I'm forced to use a certain type of tool because it's the only way to beat the game. I mean, of course, there's situations for that, like in the Zelda games, but they do it correctly. They give you the option to fight it out the hard way and beat your head against the wall with like the Master Sword, when maybe using a lightning bow would be an easier option to shoot the critical target on the boss. That sort of stuff, it kind of gives value to certain types of tools within the toolkit that makes the game more fun.
Yeah. So I think we defined challenge pretty well there. The point that we're basically gonna want to talk about, or at least to get us started on this conversation, is the pursuit of rewards. So basically, chat, we want to get a consensus.
Rewards is just one thing, like, because the reward could be anything. A reward for somebody could just be like the thrill of having beaten the challenge, and a reward could also be, oh, I got a cool weapon from it. So it's like, was it worth it? Did I get a cool weapon? Was it worth it? Do I feel accomplished because? All right,
let me lay it out though. Lay it out though. I feel like
lay it out though, because otherwise,
yeah. So, the pursuit of rewards. Should you like? Would you guys prefer that there was an actual reward that had that actually was tangible within the game? Is the reward actually just beating the difficulty and you acknowledging that you basically mastered whatever kit you would need to play the game? What rewards you receive from which difficulty? Which reward will coincide with the difficulty that you played? Should it just be maybe something cosmetic, or should it have in-game value? Like a weapon that you could use or something like that. These are the questions that we'd have to ask when it comes to rewards. I think if I can try and think back on some rewards that people enjoyed from playing a higher difficulty in a game, Resident Evil 4 does come to mind. I forget what exactly you unlocked for beating the hardest difficulty, but it was typically a weapon that had like unlimited ammo. So I don't know if for that specific difficulty, if it might have been the infinite ammo rocket launcher, or the Chicago typewriter, which was like the machine gun I think that had unlimited ammo.
For professional, it was the rocket, but the Chicago typewriter was for like normal.
Okay, so you probably got the unlimited rocket launcher or whatever for like the hardest difficulty.
Yeah.
So that's an example of one that I think was very popular. I don't know if people would still like that. Maybe they wouldn't like a weapon that would go into PvP like Destiny style. Like, you know, like if you unlock something in like the single player that you could take to PvP and then it was like broken or whatever. Then maybe some people will start complaining. But I think for the most part, people would at least like some form of reward. Now you could just leave it as cosmetic, or they could also actually want something that you could use in game as long as it doesn't give you some unfair advantage in a competitive multiplayer mode there. What do you think personally on rewards?
I mean that's pretty much it. Like the feeling of having accomplished something, getting something that kind of changes the game. It's like in order to make a good game with proper difficulty, and again we're going to bring up the Soul series a lot, it's that you go through the game but you learn what's going on, so when you go back through it again you feel like you accomplished something. If Dark Souls would have been where like instantly from beating the game you're going back to just dying 100 times over, it's like, okay, I accomplished nothing because I didn't learn anything. But the game challenges you to learn the mechanics, so that way you can go back and do better over time. And I think that's what, you know, what the Soul series does, that brings such a wonderful experience to gamers, is such a wonderful like challenge to players, because it gives you the ability to learn from your mistakes, it gives you the ability to grow, and then it gives you the ability to feel accomplished when you do those things. So and then that brings us to the next topic, which would be a steep learning curve. There's certain games where you feel like if the learning curve's too high and you're not making any progress, then it starts tapering off the experience, because you're not getting anywhere, you're not getting any progress, and you feel like the game's wasting your time. You feel like you're just hitting the wall, you're not getting any progress, and that also turns off a lot of people.
So Beat Mode here said, I think that you should get a reward. I think what we should do before we move on from the topic is like let chat have any input, so that way we can continue that conversation and not have to revisit or bounce around. So let's do that from now on. I think that you should okay, so Beat Mode 10128 on Twitch chat says, I think that you should get a reward for the next that either has a better weapon or defense area, and then the next area will be harder enemies. God of War does a good example. Okay, so you're basically saying like for achieving a difficult challenge in a video game, right? Like you beat it or whatever, you should get a weapon that will help you out with a harder mode or a harder challenge, right? Something like that. I think that's pretty fair. Personally, I didn't do any of the additional content from like the new God of War, so I don't have anything to compare it to. But I think a good example of that would be like how in Resident Evil you complete a difficulty, you get some sort of a broken weapon, and then that could help you out for the higher difficulty. So I think that's a pretty good example. Thank you for that, Beat Mode.
Right, that's something that we're gonna talk about later, because we brought in we're gonna talk about Halo, Devil May Cry, Division, those type of games that, you know, like they make you kind of think about the weapons you get and the new power-ups you get, and then how it goes along. But the thing
going
about
after no.
Yeah, the thing about games like you know, God of War is that they preset. Well, I mean, I haven't played the new God of War yet. I'm gonna have the pleasure of playing that soon. So, you know, try not to spoil it for me. Oh, and I should also mention we are gonna talk about spoilers. So be, you know, aware of that as we go into the topics. If you hear a game that we're gonna talk about and you haven't played it yet, you're free to, you know, skip the later portion when we upload it to YouTube or whatever. But the point is, there's games like the old God of Wars where they used to set you up with a certain weapon or power up, and it used to be good, but a lot of times it was hard to upgrade those weapons while in the middle of a heroic run or God mode run, because the difficulty was just too high for you to be wasting your resources when you can be putting it on your main weapon. So it's a thin ice. It's like walking on thin ice. They have to balance it in a certain way where it's worth it. Yeah, exactly. You never play. I've played all the old ones except for the only one I haven't played is the new one. I've played all the PSP ones, all the old ones. I beat them all in maximum difficulty. I've upgraded all the weapons I've seen all around, and 9 times out of 10 you are just safe just using the first power super that you get or magic ability and the first weapon that you start off with.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's keep going, because that's that we gotta keep going. Emerald said, for example, in the Coliseum in Kingdom Hearts 1, there was a platinum fight. It was Sephiroth. I had to think what Keyblade should I take in that fight to help, that'll help me out the most, and what reward will I get from beating him, and will it help me get through the rest of the game? Right. Sephiroth is more like an end game challenge. It was supposed to be like a fight that you would go through when you start reaching like the higher levels, and you've already kind of begun to the path to mastery of creating Sora, Goofy, and Donald. The perfect team dynamic with the right power-ups. I mean, there's different ways to do it. I know Mike here, he did it at level 50 something, and he thought it was a very exhilarating fight, and his brother did it at level 99, and he kept getting like clapped. And to his brother, despite the fact that his team was completely cracked with like maxed out level and this and that and whatever.
Well, in that one, you go in as Sora by yourself. You don't go in with your teammates.
Right. I'm sorry.
But I think so that actually brings up a good point, which we're gonna address later, Emerald, because that's actually different types of difficulties. Like that would be considered like RPG difficulty, where like you have to consider your level, your gear, your equipment, and stuff that you're gonna take into the fight.
But I wanted to add real quick. Hold on. I wanted to add real quick that that's a good example of difficulty because, like I just said, Mike did it at level 50 something, I did it at like 60 something, and his brother did it at 99. And we, who studied the fight, we were able to fight the boss and beat it with our lower level, whereas his brother was like level 99 and he had difficulty with the fight. So it's a good example of an RPG that kind of challenges you to level up, but it doesn't force you to just grind one thing for the purpose of meeting the stat requirement. It actually challenges you to use your toolkit in the game, which is going to be a recurring theme, like challenging you to use your full toolkit versus just simply mindlessly grinding or using one weapon only.
Yeah, and the other thing that's important about that is that that's a type of difficulty, or at least the way that fight was set up was so that it would be rewarding both to those who maybe don't have the advanced like mechanical or technical skill in the game. So like let's say me or Jordan, who are maybe we're typically players of like hack and slash games, so we understand like reading boss patterns and all that, and we're able to time our parries and our counterattacks better and everything like that. We were able to beat Sephiroth at a lower level versus my brother, who's more of just a straight up RPG player. He really only plays like those turn taking RPGs and stuff, and he just basically grinded it out to level 99, got the best Keyblade, got whatever, and then he was able to struggle, still beat, but he beat Sephiroth ultimately, which shows that there's multiple. Square Enix basically set it up multiple ways so that you can fight the boss however you may want to fight him, and you're just not forced into a certain playstyle that you're not going to want to do. But yeah, that's definitely something we're going to elaborate more on in the future when we continue the topic here.
I wanted to mention Lime's seasonal rewards are good, like some harder challenges.
Yeah, so
give better stuff in Rocket League. That's
say how I told you, because remember, people are going to be listening.
Oh, yeah,
so Lime's Lion here in the Twitch chat is saying seasonal rewards are good, like some harder challenges give better stuff like Rocket League. So yeah, that's good too. So typically I think that belongs more to like online type games and MMOs.
That's actually a good topic that unfortunately you kind of caught me here out of surprise, because we didn't come prepared to talk about that one specifically.
Well, we'll talk about it. We'll bring it up.
We'll try and elaborate it. I don't have good information because I don't play Rocket League or Fortnite on that. So maybe you can help us out while we try and research that. But I think maybe I can get to it with a little bit of Destiny and Division in there to see how we can talk about it. I think we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So now we're definitely going to move on here. We're going to talk about this. What were we? We're on the steep learning curve, right?
Well, we pretty much covered it. I think Kingdom Hearts is a great way to do it, where there's like a decent learning curve, but steep learning curve specifically is when the game starts off way too hard, or there's just like extreme difficulty spikes that kind of change the experience. You're like you're expecting some form of experience, and it just changes entirely. And another version of steep learning curve, just to give a better example, even though we're not going to talk about it too much, would be like PvP learning curves, where you have like the mouse and keyboard, which gives you a high ceiling for skill, but once you get to a certain tier, the curve just goes like super steep straight upward, because it just ends up being it becomes like negligible improvement of your skill set, where once you reach a certain level, it's just about like you fine-tuning the tiny maybe moment to moment choices you make and that sort of stuff, which is, it's kind of hard to get into, but you can see it on games like Division 2 and the old RPGs like Diablo 2, where you had to like make specific choices understanding what you're reading, what you're doing to make sure that those options are beneficial for you in the end game.
You heard my Windows notification? Yeah, I'll edit that out in post, but nothing we can do about it now.
It's fine. It makes it more natural. It makes you think like, you know, like we're actually in a podcast and we're not just pre-recorded. Anyway, let's get going. So the different types of difficulty that we're going to be talking about today would be...
Wait, you're skipping, man.
What? Oh yeah, that's right.
Okay, why don't you let me lead the topics? I think you're a little you're a little jumpy today. You're a little jumpy. You're a little jumpy. Let me jump in here.
Go ahead.
All right. So
I'm excited.
That's fine. Relax. It's all good. So what do I have to say about the steep learning curve? So yeah, the steep learning curve could definitely be I mean, it depends. I guess a lot of people might see a steep learning curve as a problem. Some might see it as actually something that you would invite. For me, for example, one game that I think that might have a little bit of a steep learning curve is Halo 2. You know, doing the campaign on Legendary. It's very renowned for being a highly difficult campaign. You die in like less than a second to some BS, you know, whatever. But so I would consider that game to be a steep learning curve because, you know, you typically, if you play it on the normal difficulty, whatever, or the easy difficulty, you kind of experiment, try out different weapons, and then maybe you end up liking the SMGs more or something like that, or you end up liking a weapon that might not end up being viable in the legendary difficulty. So I would consider that a bit of a steep learning curve because in Halo 2, you would specifically need to know where to stand on the map, and you have to learn the very important combo of like plasma pistol and battle rifle, because without that, you can't really beat that the campaign on Legendary all that easily.
We're gonna get to that because that's actually one of our main topics. So let's just finish explaining everything.
Yeah, but I'm just giving you a general example about steep learning curve.
So they know what we're gonna talk about.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure we get through the topics because last time we got through 2 of them and we never finished what we meant to talk about. So I just want to make sure that this time we at least get the main point.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. We'll get there. Go
ahead and sound off the last topic.
Not yet. Relax. You're speeding through too fast, man. Let's talk about it a little bit more. People want to actually talk about this. So yeah, exactly, Emerald. That's the point I'm making. So Emerald on chat says steep learning curves can be a double-edged sword. That's exactly the point that I was making, where it's that you know, some people might see it inviting. So like how I personally liked it in the Halo 2 campaign. Jordan thinks that steep learning curve was a bit too much for his taste.
I enjoyed it too. I'm just arguing that it might be too steep.
Yeah, that it might be too steep. So it's also what you're saying. Maybe for some people, an example of a steep learning curve to me, that was a little bit more of a... I mean, I still like the game because I'm a guy that likes challenge. But for me, it was like, oh, damn, I'm really going to have to sit down and learn this game. And, you know, it was a little bit more of something that made me feel cautious. Was like for Devil May Cry 3. Or the first Devil May Cry, it had to put a lot of thought into that game, and that was an example of a steep learning curve that was a bit of a challenge. But I'm glad to see that you like them as well.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add real quick, because we are going to talk about Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry 1 was considered to be a little unfair by those means, but it goes on the old school games where balancing wasn't really a thing. It was just more about like just getting the game out there.
Oh, really? Devil May Cry 1 had that reputation for it?
Yeah, it has a little bit of a reputation for that. Devil May Cry 3 was considered, I guess, like the best one because with all the different styles, they actually took the time to balance the combat and do the different, you know, movesets. So it was a little bit more, I guess it was highly regarded in that respect, like for the combat. But they both, it's all debatable, you know. Specifically, Devil May Cry 1 had like the old school gaming issue where difficulty wasn't truly balanced. But
there was also the issue of that camera. That camera was kind of wonky.
Oh yeah, the camera also got in the way. Like that's old school games, you know. It is what it is. But there's also like removing too much of the challenge and the fun, where it just feels like you're going through a slog for the sake of going through a slog, which is seen a lot in games like Assassin's Creed and all that. But we will talk about that later. I don't want to sit here and endlessly roam on about how 80 hours on Assassin's Creed Valhalla was like probably not their best choice. It's not about making it shorter, it's about making sure the content is worth it.
All right. Okay, I think that was pretty good on that. So we addressed steep learning curves here. Why don't we talk about the different ways that we can introduce difficulty to video games, you know, and what are the consequences of increasing difficulty by certain means? I think that's kind of an important thing to talk about.
Right. So So I wanted to start off by saying games like Persona, which are difficult in the way that you strategize your characters, level them up, prepare them for combat, is one way of increasing difficulty because it challenges you to consider all the options that your characters have and your toolkit so you can fight, in the battles. And then Emerald here from Twitch is saying that it differs in people's taste. Some just want to learn how to play and get into the game. Those people that want to think about how to play and have fun time on a hard difficulty, like me and Mike. Right. Some people just want to go through the game, and some people want to actually have a challenge, and that's what the difficulty selection is about. You have different difficulties, but it always has to have it always has to have a challenge in the way where it makes you consider what you have in the game. It shouldn't just be like I know a friend of mine who played Street Fighter 3 with us as a kid, and his option for beating us was always picking the most broken character in the game, which is Gil. And using Gil to fight everything isn't really a challenge. You're just choosing to find a way to exploit the game for what it is, which personally removes the purpose of the game. The purpose of the game is to put an obstacle for you, and then you try to overcome it, or to give you an experience, a journey. If you're just throwing all that away for glitches, getting out of the map, or exploiting the game for the purpose of passing, then what's the point?
Yeah, I think another way to like restate what he's saying is basically that he feels that like it would be better for a harder difficulty of a game to force you to completely utilize the game's tool set rather than creating a meta where you're forced to just use one aspect of it, and maybe the gameplay can kind of start to feel a little bit stale or a little bit repetitive with the meta that's been created for you to essentially beat the game.
Exactly. And to tie it all back into the topic, it's how to introduce difficulty. Is it something where you want to create a meta, or is it something where you want to have a challenge where you're learning how to use your toolkits to beat the game? That's why a lot of people like survival games.
Why don't we actually list out what are the different ways that you could introduce difficulty?
Right. That's what I'm trying to point out. Like survival games are one way to put out difficulty, because you create you create a mechanic where you can actually have permadeath, die by natural disasters, or
usually survival games also will have you find resources. So
right.
if you're playing a survival game like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, maybe in an area where you're used to playing on easy, you'll find 20 bullets. Now maybe you only find 3, or you won't find any bullets there at all.
And it tries to challenge you on using what's on the map. Another high difficulty game that a lot of people like, that personally I didn't enjoy, and maybe I just have to look at it differently, is the Doom series, because the whole game is based around you as a player studying the map, figuring out where to go, how to pick up the power-ups and the health packs, and when to pick up all the ammo to fight the enemies. And it kind of lets you strategize around the map. And then there's games like veteran Call of Duty, which, to be honest, veteran Call of Duty isn't really super hard, but it's just an example of like the game forces you to shoot at certain parts, and at certain parts it makes you follow a cut or a scene that it wants you to play out. I feel like it's basically like going through a play where you're at certain points the game just increases difficulty for no reason to make you hide behind a map and play out the scene so you don't go too fast, and sometimes it just lets you go nuts. It's not consistent difficulty.
Oh, so look, Limes Lions on Twitch here brought up an interesting point. He said Minecraft added netherite armor, which made it too easy. It's dumb. So you see, that's an example of players right there wanting, I guess, not for the developers to not add something that would reduce the difficulty to that point. But I guess we could have a conversation about this towards the end. But I want to ask you something to keep in mind, maybe that we could discuss later. Is there challenges towards the end of Minecraft that maybe would really require you to have the netherite armor for it to work out well, or is it just dumb, like, period? And then Rivero 1997 here on Twitch said Doom 2016 is a masterpiece.
Agreed.
Yeah. So just wondering, are you saying it's a masterpiece in general, or are you saying that it's like the difficulty is really well balanced? I heard it was really good, but I'm just curious as to what's the lens you're looking at this at.
And Doom, for me, it's a masterpiece on PC. On console, I think they needed to work a little bit, because I don't think they put any aim assist. which kind of made it weird for me to enjoy it because I'm used to playing Halo and COD and all that stuff that always have aim assist. So that was kind of a weird thing. But on PC, it's perfect. It should not be changed. It is perfect.
Yeah, so let me bounce off what Jordan was saying at the start there. So Call of Duty is an example of maybe a difficulty choice that isn't the best there. So yeah, because all it really is just scripting harder. You know, like, oh, if you peek in a corner where they really don't want you to peek all that much, you could just instantly die, or if you don't follow the NPC close enough, you could just die. So it's that's not the best way to introduce difficulty. Or there's for me, one really annoying way that you could introduce difficulty is like in Marvel Avengers. I tried playing some of the missions on the hardest difficulty, and it didn't really feel like the right kind of challenging. It felt really cheap because all that essentially happened was that the bosses, they basically, or not even the bosses, just all the NPCs just basically one-shot you, and then they take 5 additional years to get killed because they just buff they add so much health points to them that it'll take you 5,000 years to get through, like even just defeating a guy with a gun, which is a really horrible way to add difficulty in my opinion. Like you can play around with
Marvel's Avengers, right? We're talking about Marvel's Avengers?
Yeah, we're talking about Marvel's Avengers.
Okay. That game's not hard.
Well, I'm not saying... I don't think... Again, they in their mind, that's the thing, though. On hard difficulty, their way of adding difficulty to the game was just making the enemies extra spongy. Which... And
then kill you faster.
Exactly.
That's the kind
which
of
I think
that we're going to talk about, that we're going to say it needs to be avoided, because it doesn't make for a good experience. Especially in a game like that, where it's supposed to challenge you to dodge properly and create a unique experience between you and your heroes. It's about you leveling up your heroes, learning how they fight, and then using that in the combat. Not about you fighting a sponge, basically trying to rip apart a ragdoll mid-combat.
Yeah, exactly. And other, just other things in general that we're going to be talking about as well. So, Jordan actually wrote us up a list here of the different types of difficulty. I don't exactly know what he means by these yet, so I'm going to let him introduce them, and then as he goes through each one, I'll give my input on each of those. So why don't you go ahead and break them down for us?
It was probably a little bit confusing in the way I wrote it in the topic list, but just to clarify, so there's different types of difficulty experiences that you have in different types of games. So there's obviously FPS difficulty, hacker slasher difficulty, there's RPG difficulty, pay to win difficulty, and then difficulty spikes.
Rivero there said, by the way, that Netherite armor is actually put in for the new boss that's being added in the next update. Okay, you see, that's kind of dumb on their part, because why would they ever choose to add something that breaks the game like that without even the need being there for it yet?
That's the game as a service thing. They add things little by little so people can start farming ahead of time and then prepare for the fight. It's hard
games
to
as a service bad. I don't like that.
Minecraft is pretty good.
No, yeah, Minecraft is good, but I think games as a service is BS.
We'll bring that up for episode next episode.
We'll revisit games as a service next time.
Part 2 and a part 3, and then in like 2030 we'll do a part 10.
Yeah, I also agree with the fact that Doom is a masterpiece. I got to play that game. I actually probably do it on my own stream at some point. Ooh, savage. And then Emerald here also says, I think it comes down to developers listening to the people and taking the feedback, incorporating into the game in terms of difficulty. Right. That's actually something we could talk about later, whether or not developers should actually listen to the players on it or not.
Hard,
we'll bring that up.
We're definitely going to talk about that because that's also
afterwards.
Important too. Which I recently heard from a friend that he disliked Dark Souls 2 because they removed difficulty from the game. I disagree. I understand where he was coming from, but I disagree.
Yeah. But okay, so why don't you lay out for us what what FPS difficulty is?
So let's get back on the list. So FPS difficulty is about games where you have to manage how to peek out corners, how to learn how to shoot properly, improving aiming, speed of aiming, reflex movements, reflex shooters, that sort of stuff, as well as learning how to manage when to take cover, when not to take cover, how to proceed with a fight, in terms of having an opening attack with a grenade, maybe.
Okay, so I see. So the list that you're laying out here is basically like
the types of difficulty
the
that you would see in a
actual
certain
like
game.
mechanics that go into the gameplay of that type of game.
Mechanics that you would see in a type of game. So, and then hacker slasher is more about learning how to fight with the weapons given to you at melee range. You'd have to learn how to block, parry, dodge, what types of combos to use, when to use them, when to use your items if you're provided items, how to escape a fight, how to get into a fight, that sort of stuff. RPG difficulty is more about learning. It's about learning what's the difference between the stat requirement and strategizing. You have games like Dragon Age that challenge you with using your proper spells, proper movesets, abilities, learning which armor to put on, what weapons have the right stat for the certain portion of the game that you're playing in, and when does it become too spongy? Like, is an enemy spongy because you didn't prepare correctly? Is it spongy because there wasn't proper balance? That sort of stuff. Pay to win difficulty is probably the least important topic of today, but it's a very valid one. Where, and this is mostly seen in gacha games, where you have to pay infinite amount of dollars to improve your characters to win, and you'll see that a lot in free-to-play games. Lastly, we have difficulty spikes. So difficulty spikes can be a range of things, but it's mostly like an experience. I was gonna tell you, man, you gotta center yourself more. I'm gonna try and.
You could put it off to the side, but just make sure it points towards your mouth.
I don't want to point it that way because I don't want you to come out here.
Oh, that's true.
That's fine. Anyways,
maybe. No.
It's just better if I leave. Let's just keep it here. So
you have to point it towards your mouth, so if not, it won't pick you up.
Difficulty spike is it's a range of many things. So difficulty spike can be something where you're having a current experience and then it's just poorly balanced, where all of a sudden something becomes way too hard out of nowhere and it's not consistent. Or it could be something where you'll see this a lot in shooters, where there's a kill box room. That's sort of what it's considered in the community, where enemies are placed specifically just to make you die, and the only way to get around them is to realize where they spawn ahead of time, to fight them and kill them before they can see you. And there's a weird dynamic there, which a lot of people may consider that as a puzzle. I consider it sort of as like understanding a puzzle. Games like Uncharted and Halo have this, but I wouldn't say it's the best form of difficulty unless you're doing a puzzle game. Anything you want to add through this?
Yeah, so for those, let's just talk a little bit about each of those. FPS difficulty. So if I sit back and think about FPS difficulty, like, game difficulty for first-person shooter games, honestly, I feel like that's probably... Yeah, I think if I'm going through my mind, I feel like first-person shooters might struggle quite the most with difficulty. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not. Like, either they end up making it too easy or too hard.
Not necessarily. I would argue RPGs have the most difficulty, because on top of having to create all the mechanics, they have to balance out a lot of stats, and they have
grinding and stuff, making sure that one potential grinding.
You have, yeah, exactly, that you have a portion where you do grind, so you feel like you're taking a journey to improve yourself as a character RPG wise, and at the same time they also have to make it so that it's not just like, oh, I don't have the right stat and therefore I can't fight, I can't progress. A lot of people, there's going to be people that are in RPGs. One of the biggest issues, which is why people don't complete RPGs, is because they get to a point where it's like, oh man, I did the wrong setup. Now I have to go back, reset all my stuff, reorganize how I use my gear, grind this and that. And Michael's going to feel a lot of that with Marvel Avengers, where he had to, the game stopped you, made you grind, do this and that.
Well, to be honest, I'm probably never going to play that game anymore.
Maybe not. But the point is that this is the experience that he had. I always argue with him because when it comes to RPGs, he's not very, or at least looters, he's not very into them. So he kind of forgoes a lot of the things that make the looter, and he ends up getting the wrong, setups for his gear. But that's a whole different conversation.
I don't know why
we would have to show in person.
I don't know why looters are a thing, man. Literally, I try to play Marvel Avengers to be a hero, and they're out here like, no, man, you got to replace Hulk's forearms so that way you could be real strong. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I said that it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
That mechanic, what they were going for is the right thing. They just did it the wrong way.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you feel like basically FPS is actually pretty simple to get the difficulty right. You think it's more with RPG with the complexity.
I'm just saying that I argue that RPG is harder to get balanced. FPSs are still kind of hard, to get balance, which is why we see things like Halo 2 Legendary, Destiny, Heroic or Master, even Doom on Nightmare mode can sometimes be a nightmare at times. But at least Doom, you know, they have a better option because they challenge you throughout the.
So, what are example of games that you would say, like first-person shooter games that actually do a good job of getting their difficulty right?
All right, that's a tough one. I mean, well,
I know some people actually argue that Halo. Really? Yeah.
I'd say Doom to start. Halo 1 did a pretty good job, but Halo 1 did what Doom did, where it challenges you to go around the map and learn where the pickups are, so you can strategize how you do your moveset. I think Halo 1 and Doom specifically, the new ones, have done a pretty good job of balancing difficulty for first-person shooter. Even Call of Duty, I think, does a pretty decent job at times. It's just kind of, it's debatable because they do, like I said, they do situations where certain scenarios are just made to make you die.
Well, I guess the thing about Call of Duty is that once you've played, I mean, how do I say this correctly? Because I'm not saying, a lot of the times, you know, obviously with Call of Duty, the campaigns are repetitive here and there, but there are those few Call of Duty campaigns that do innovate, at least in terms of Call of Duty. But I think once you... okay, so let me say a statement, and then I'll kind of clarify what I mean once I say it. So when you've played a Call of Duty campaign on Veteran, I kind of feel like you've played them all. In what sense? So obviously I'm not saying that, like, you know... the Black Ops 3 campaign is the same thing as Black Ops 2 or Black Ops 1 in terms of like the events that happen in the campaign. But what I do mean when I say that when you've played a veteran campaign on Call of Duty, you've played them all, is that it's just basically comes down to knowing where the enemies are spawning from, you know, kind of preemptively just firing to get rid of as many NPCs as you can, and then taking cover super fast. So kind of going back to what Jordan was saying earlier, where, you know, the FPS difficulty really comes down to knowing your angles, you know, maybe perhaps choosing a better weapons, reloading at proper moments, getting behind cover at proper moments, knowing your positioning on the maps. And in Call of Duty, it tends to be actually pretty linear. So, you know, you just stay behind the box or a wall, maybe head glitch, that sort of stuff. And,
Right.
and if you do that, you'll typically get through every Call of Duty on Veteran. As long as you go where the game wants you to go, you follow the NPCs you have to,
Right.
you'll be fine.
Right. It's a difficult topic because FPS games, there are the ones that do it right. And for example, one of the things that sucks in an FPS game, which I know a lot of people can probably relate to this, is the two weapon system. When you have an FPS shooter that gives you two weapons, and that's all you can use, and then you're forced to use one type of weapon, which is the meta weapon, it reduces the fun because it's like, oh, I like this type of weapon, or I want to use that one, and then you find out none of those are useful, and the only one that's useful is the meta one, and the one to use to supplement or support the meta, which is something that Halo 2 Legendary has, that we're gonna get to now. You want to go ahead and put up the video and get started on Halo? So I think if we start showing people what we're talking about.
Do you really want? Oh, you just want to? Because I was thinking we'll give our opinions on the different types of. Okay, wait.
I mean, we're gonna show them. I got.
Should we just as we go through the list then show examples of each of them? Is that what we want to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so yeah, since we're on FPS difficulty, let's go ahead and pull up an example of one of the most infamous types of difficulty in first-person shooters.
Yep.
Halo 2. So that you guys can see what's up with that.
Listening in through SoundCloud, Apple Music, and Spotify, we're gonna try and narrate as best as we can the difficulty and what's going on in the game. But feel free to also, you know, watch us on YouTube when you get a chance, so you can see more or less what we're talking about. It gives us more interactivity, and you guys can share your opinions with us as we go along, so we can improve the podcast.
So are you sure you want to use this one? Because this one's just like an essay. It's like a video essay on the difficulty. Or do you want to just look at the walkthrough?
We're gonna show the gameplay of it, so people can kind of see.
So
like,
walkthrough?
Yeah, just put a walkthrough on Legend.
Yeah, because this is like an essay. All right, so let me see if I can pull up a good example here. Let me just check real quick, guys. I don't want to be talking about how hard this is, and then all of a sudden we get
the background is like just going God mode.
Yeah, we get some sweat that just.
That's inevitable. It's unfortunately inevitable. There's always going to be people that they know what they're doing, and you're gonna see it here.
This guy smoked past it in 30 minutes, so I don't think he's struggling really.
Just put something like legendary is too hard, so we can show an example.
Well, you know what? This one's fine. This one's perfect.
We're not trying to say that the game's easy or hard or it's too hard. We're just trying to explain what type of difficulty is right and what type of difficulty just becomes like it's boring, gross. I don't feel like dealing with this, that sort of stuff.
All right, this is a perfect example. I feel like, because I've seen this video before, and I know that this one will do a good job of doing what we need. So, just to break down what's going on the screen here, right? So we already see that this guy has picked up a plasma rifle. Right now he's using an SMG, but this is obviously not the most optimal way to play it. But look how careful he is, right? You could have seen that he could have gone through the glass balcony that was right in front of him, that glass rail on the stairs, and he chooses to run back as soon as the elite comes up, right? Normally, if it was like normal or easy, he just would have killed that red elite that popped up right there. But now look how careful he's playing, and he's like hiding behind stuff and really like strafing and being careful, because the game just kind of forces him.
Right, and that's also one of the things that I wanted to point out with Halo, which I've been going back and forth on mic with this for a couple months now, maybe even years. We've talked about this a lot. One of the things about Halo is when you first play Halo, you're this giant super Spartan, like 7 foot tall military, like super soldier that has armor and regenerating shields, and you're this guy that the experience is you run in, not necessarily run in to get yourself killed, but you run in and you can take on maybe 3 or 4 enemies at the same time using certain weapons, punching them, getting into melee range and picking up their weapons to use it against them. The dynamic changes 100% when you get into into the higher difficulties, because you just start getting hit so hard by the enemies that you're forced to hide, consider when you want to pop out and shoot, as well as what weapons to have on hand. Now, Michael was saying something important too. The guy's not playing it as most optimal because he's using weapons. He's using the plasma rifle rather than the plasma pistol. Just so you guys know, for those listening in, the plasma pistol, if you've never played the game, is a weapon that where you charge it up and you shoot at an enemy, it immediately takes away their shield and leaves them open for a one-shot kill. The problem is that the only weapon that effectively one-shot kills, the only 2 weapons, I think it was the carbine, the alien carbine rifle, and the battle rifle. So
the snipers actually work effectively as well.
The snipers do, but
the plasma rifle and then the human rifle as well, the one with a numbery lettery name. So you can see on screen here, because of the fact that he wants to make use of the plasma pistols for one of the most... All right, we didn't do a good job of setting this up for our listeners, but essentially, we're looking at the first level of Halo 2 on Legendary. They're at the Cairo station, and now the player is actually pulled up to the part where the Covenant ship docked onto the Cairo station, and that's the first real difficulty spike of that level. I was about to comment at the fact that he was using a strategy that you would typically not implement in the campaign, where he was constantly picking up a plasma pistol and swapping it out for another plasma pistol that he already had, for the sake of trying to bring along an extra plasma pistol, just because it's that meta in the Halo 2 campaign. And now, as you can see on the screen, he's really taking his time, peeking just to fire out a plasma pistol shot, being extra careful. And yeah, he's just having to be super careful because 1 or 2 bullets would already almost completely drain his shield, and then I think it's 1 more shot after his shield is gone and he's pretty much dead. But this is something that a lot of people complain about, but as you can see, this player isn't a pro player by any means, and he's actually being able to get past it quite fine. Now, I presume, though, he's played the Legendary campaign before, so it might not be his first playthrough. But I personally don't think it's all that bad. If this guy, not being a pro gamer, can do it, it's within the reach of others to do it as well, and he wasn't even playing optimally up until this point either.
Right, and the way that he's doing it, just to explain how he can do it, is that he learned how far the enemy's like the range of the enemy's sight is, for him to be able to hide. He's hiding in a catwalk right now, fighting enemies on the floor below.
He's using the high ground.
Using the high ground. I have the high ground.
No, man, you gotta do the voice right. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground.
Yeah, there you go. I gotta improve my voice work. So he has the high ground in this battle, He's using the plasma pistols from far away to try and get the enemies down to one shot and kill them. And then that's the strategy. It's be far away, hide, kill 1 or 2 enemies at a time, be smart, try not to get overrun, and that's it. Where the game used to be this thing where you were all out, figuring out when to, take on a certain enemy and beat them up. You're now hiding in the background, and you're slowly but sluggishly moving throughout the level, taking your time. Of course, a pro player will always be a pro player, and they'll figure out ways to, make it faster or break the game in a certain way, but that's not what we're seeing here. What we're seeing here is simply just a guy using the same strategy over and over again. Plasma pistol, 1 shot to the head. Plasma pistol, 1 shot to the head. Maybe a plasma grenade here, another grenade there. But
I would have to disagree with you there, because
all the time you're hiding all the time, but that's not what Halo was. The experience drastically changes to an opposite game from what it started off as.
Well, that's true, but I have to disagree with you on the fact that he was just plasma pistol and battle rifling. He just did that now when he entered that previous room in the Cairo station, and he's been doing it now because it seems like that's the only weapons that are available to him. But up until this point, there was a couple of times where I saw him pick up a regular pistol and then the plasma pistol at the same time. He had an SMG at some point, and now he's just where he switched to the battle rifle and the plasma pistol. But to be fair, I don't feel like Halo 2 has the biggest variety of weapons either, especially in that first level. So, yeah, he might be doing that meta strategy right now, but up until that point, he was enjoying the game as however he wanted. And, I understand where before maybe it felt like you were like this unstoppable machine that could just kind of go through and do what you want. But, the thing about difficulty that you have to consider is that, obviously, if the game's harder, you're going to have to kind of maybe consider changing up how you're playing up until a certain point. Like if you were used to playing the game a certain way and now a higher difficulty requires you to switch that up for you to succeed, that's something that you should consider. Obviously this doesn't have to do with the Halo 2 gameplay that we have on screen now, but a good example of that would be when you showed me that you were playing Beyond Light the other week. You were kind of trying to be super confrontational with the boss and everything. And, we took turns and I grabbed the controller and I kind of just did something different where I was being a little bit more, I avoided the boss a bit more and I almost ended up beating the boss that way. And then you got the controller after that, you applied the same strategy and then you actually got to beat the boss. So sometimes it just really requires you to kind of change your perspective on how you're playing for you to beat it. Now, could some people find it annoying that the best way to play is with the plasma pistol and the battle rifle? Sure. But I don't think you necessarily have to apply this strategy when you're playing it. I know I certainly did it when I was a kid. I didn't even know that. I thought, honestly, that the plasma pistol was worthless. And
everyone did at first.
Yeah, and I actually managed to find a way to beat it. So I don't know. That's just one example of many, to be fair.
Right, but again, it goes off to the thing. You're telling me that, but it amplifies the difficulty. And yeah, it does change. It's nice to have a change of strategy, obviously. And Destiny, that example was pretty good. But here's the thing versus Destiny and Beyond Light. Yeah, I needed to change my strategy, but it didn't make me strip away my toolset. Rather, it challenged me to use my toolset in a different way. If this game presented itself as something where you have to, challenge yourself to shoot better, move faster, learn how to jump, when to do that, that's fine because it does. But the second you do that and you make even the slightest of mistakes, you immediately get sent, as you can see here as the video finally showed at the end there, you get sent back to the beginning of the level as soon as you die. So
that's actually because this player is playing. That's because this player is playing with skulls. There's a skull that does that.
Oh, it
would actually have a checkpoint. So
okay.
Yeah, it's a check. It would send you back to the closest checkpoint, which actually would have been the same room. So he made it into that second room in the Cairo station where a Covenant ship latches on to the Cairo station, and he ended up dying there, and he got sent back to the beginning of the game. But that's not the actual game's design. That was actually a skull that he had on to make it harder for himself. Which, again, I think it's pretty funny that you were going to bring that up as a criticism when a player is actually going out of their way to go ahead and do that.
If you're personally trying to challenge yourself, I understand that. Like, I've seen people that do challenges like no death run or only pistol run and stuff like that, and that's perfectly fine. But it needs to. It's too steep. is what I'm trying to say. It bottlenecks you into a certain type of playstyle where you don't feel rewarded unless you literally look into that sort of stuff. Now we're gonna look at Halo 1, which is gonna be quite different of an experience because the challenge between Halo 1 and Halo 2 was, or I mean, the difference in challenges is the health. In Halo 2, you can only resort to recharging your health.
Recharging your shield,
recharging your shields. Sorry. Which the only way to do it is just to stay in cover and not get damaged so much. But now in Halo 1, you actually have to look up medkits, find out how to move around the map, and then when you do, you figure out what's good, what's not good, what works, what doesn't, how to move around the map, and you don't die as fast. In Halo 2, you die in like maybe 3 seconds of getting shot, versus in Halo 1 where you probably last like 10 seconds. Gives you enough time to see why you died, how you can improve, and where to go. And that's another thing too. You got to see why. If your entire mentality is based off of one type of meta style playstyle, it's not going to make for a fun experience, which is the whole point of what we're talking about. How much difficulty is too much?
So yeah, right now we're looking at the gameplay of Halo 1 Combat Evolved, and you can see that he's actually being a lot more aggressive in this game due to the fact that he picked up an overshield already, which is something that's largely missing from the Halo 2 campaign, if I'm honest. There's not like overshields laying around in different places.
There's not as many.
Yeah, there's not as many, and there's not any med packs in Halo 2 either.
And that's one of the things that changes the dynamic of the game. When you're forced to... In Halo 2, it just draws on the thing where you're just hiding in the back, making sure you're not dying.
No, and I'm noticing here as well that the aliens don't fire as fast as they do in Halo 2. They actually fire at normal rates of fire.
Well, if you look closer, it's because they're using plasma pistols, not plasma.
No, but the elite was actually using a plasma rifle too, and it didn't. Oh, yeah. It actually was firing at the normal fire rate as well. You don't get advertising on our podcast. How dare you?
Yeah, that's one thing as well, and you can see here that the enemies are even they're not staying in the back, fighting you off from a distance. They're actually trying to go around, get them from the back, trying to be more strategic.
That animation always gets me. Right there, the red elite was I guess his shield's burned out, and he was doing that animation where he kind of freaks out and exactly to attack you, whatever. But so, you
see, here's something interesting right here. The guy was prepared. He saw that he was low shield, and he went back and picked up another overshield pack to continue going to the next fight. So it encourages you to search around, make sure you get the right, that you know what's around you, what items you have available to you, and then challenges you to know when to use them for the battles to make it a more interesting, scenario. And in Halo 2, you don't feel like that. You feel like you're mostly just hiding in the back and just picking them off one by one, taking your time, being slow and strategic, which is fine. That's a certain type of strategy for a shooter, and it's very valid. In a real life situation, you wouldn't go running out like guns a-blazing like you see in the movies. You would take your time, use your sight lines correctly, aim, try and take out one guy at a time. You don't try and take on the army in the world. But that's not what the dynamic of Halo was when it was first created. It created an experience where you were challenged to move around the map in certain ways and learn how to use your toolkits to its maximum potential. You don't feel like that when you play Halo 2, and that's kind of my argument on saying that difficulty is a bit too steep. It's too much because it detracts from the fun of figuring out how to play the game. You're not figuring out how to fight in those scenarios. You're just figuring out that if you just stay in the back and you camp all the time, you'll get past each level slowly but surely.
For me, I'm looking at this gameplay of Halo 1 Combat Evolved, and honestly, to me, it looks kind of boring after seeing the gameplay of Halo 2.
Well, the memories are always going to be there too. I mean, when you see the improved animations. No,
but it's not just the improved animation. It's also how the way that the AI is programmed. Here, in Halo 2 they sidestep, but here it seems like the sidestep takes a bit longer, almost like a second and a half or something, or 2 seconds, whereas in Halo 2, it was a lot quicker. And then also the fact that their firing rate stays normal on this difficulty, your shield just stays up for so long, and they give you so many opportunities to just get off free shots, where before that wasn't the case. You see, to me, this looks more like it's almost like a hard difficulty playthrough rather than a legendary. just because it's not the kind of difficulty that I'm accustomed to playing through on a legendary, because I first started with Halo 2 regardless. Now, I could see why more people might say that this is a better legendary difficulty, especially if you're not trying to play that's like hyper abusive like the legendary difficulty of Halo 2, and maybe you're trying to see the legendary ending of the game or something like that. That might be something that frustrates you. But honestly, I just feel like I don't know, this just looks too easy to me.
Yeah, the argument can be said, what's too easy, what's too hard, because you have the option to kind of fight back on equal grounds with the aliens in Halo 1 versus Halo 2, where you kind of just, it's like a one-way thing. You either die or you don't type of deal. And that's one of the things too that you want to look out for, because at a certain point, what makes difficulty too much? What makes difficulty too much? And it's beyond making Halo 1 the way it was. Did they have to really make you die that fast to make it harder, or could they have just improved, enemy AI, which is what they did in Halo 2? But on top of that, it was overkill at that point. If they would have just kept Halo 2's AI system, but then made the difficulty the same as Halo 1, I think it would have been a better option, because it still would have been more challenging. But at the same time, it wouldn't just have been like just a meta type of game where you're forced to do one certain type of thing to get through the game.
Right. So yeah, in Halo 2, on top of the fact that they blew up the stats like they did and everything like that, they did also add the new versions of enemies. I don't know if that's a thing that happened in Halo Combat Evolved.
You saw the red elites; they're supposed to be blue.
True, but also if one thing I want to bring up for the detraction of the difficulty in Halo 2, in Halo Combat Evolved versus Halo 2, is that while Halo 2 was pretty broken all throughout. Oh, excuse me. While Halo 2 was pretty broken all throughout, and maybe it had a difficulty spike here or there with the introduction of the sniper jackals, Halo Combat Evolved had our favorite, the RPG floods.
Oh yeah, great. No, but I think that's in Halo 3 and Halo 2 as well.
No, but I think in Halo Combat Evolved it was particularly bad because it was one of the more. It was like a more common.
That's a form of difficulty spike right there, where it just changes the experience drastically. You're like, whoa, what is this? It hasn't been part of the game at all.
Right. Personally,
the experience.
Yeah, like me, I don't know. I guess a lot of people don't like the fact that they have to play super careful in the Halo 2 Legendary campaign, but I honestly prefer a consistent getting wrecked and having to be careful over, let's say, having a difficulty be a smooth ride and all of a sudden encountering this insurmountable section of the game that now forces you to completely rewire how you thought about it up until this point,
But that's also the point why I brought up this topic of Halo into the podcast. It's that right there. Like, you have to play too careful. It's too much because it drastically changes the experience of what Halo's supposed to be. This isn't COD. You're not hiding behind corners and in a real World War simulator. You're supposed to be the Spartan guy that kind of has a bit more of a fighting chance against the elite, despite how aggressively violent they are. But you're supposed to be the guy that can overcome that. So to overcome it by hiding like a regular Marine, you just have a power armor. It detracts from the experience of what is Halo. The fact that you can go out there and you make a stand. You are like that one scene in Wonder Woman from the movie where she's the only one that can cross no man's land because she is no woman or whatever. But she takes out the shield. She walks up. She sits in front of the Gatling gun, takes in all the bullets, and which is like one of the coolest scenes of the entire movie. Because she's the only one that can move up. If she was just, I'm a superhero, and bullets don't damage me, but I'm still gonna snipe from this far away because I could die, from bullet. It changes the experience right there. She's no longer Wonder Woman. She's just super hero or super woman compared to a regular woman. It's just a Captain America practice.
So here's what I have to say about that. She actually, Wonder Woman can die by bullet. That's why she has to block it with her armor. But if we look into the hey there,
Water Shirt.
Hey, thanks for the follow, Water Shirt. We really appreciate it. So check this out though. That's an interesting point because I would actually argue the opposite in my case. You have to that goes two ways. If you're Master Chief, so you're supposed to be this awesome super soldier that can, take out everything. But you have to remember that the other half of that story is that supposedly the Covenant are that legendary of a force too.
Yeah,
exactly. The Marines have been getting destroyed left and right. Humanity's on its last leg. The Covenant is turning the planet to glass, essentially. And if you're just able to breeze through it left and right, and by the way, so are your Marines, so is Johnson, everyone else can just kill the elites and everything too. Are they really that much of a threat? All of a sudden, you put on Legendary, everyone's just dying instantly, and it's up to you now. You're the only thing that's standing between the Covenant and the safety of the planet and humanity. So yeah, it might feel like you have to hide and your armor gets chipped away at more like instantly and stuff, and you could die if you're not careful. But the whole point, in my opinion, is getting you to be that guy, getting you to be the only one who'll survive this insurmountable force. And then afterwards, once you've beaten this insurmountable difficulty, you're rewarded by the fact that you are truly the Master Chief because you beat this legendary force. You're the only soldier who was able to do it. And now it actually feels like the enemies were an insurmountable force rather than, you just have your ego inflated by casually walking through them. Now you've earned your title of the demon, of the Master Chief.
Exactly. That's a good point too. But it goes to the thing in Halo 1 when you're going through the legendary. Yeah, there is a difficulty spike here and there. I mean, it's the first of their game and it has the old school syndrome problem where it's literally just difficulty was hard to balance at first because they were getting to learn how to make the game mechanics online. We can put those faults in there. Halo 1 is not perfect. I'm just using it as an example. But it's that kind of thing where it challenges you to be unique about your toolset. And then over time, as you learn, you become more auxiliary because they're a force to be reckoned with. They're killing you, but you're learning as you go along to fight the challenges. In Halo 2, you get a massive pleasure spike when you beat that first level. You're like, damn, that was hard. I just got past this ridiculous thing. And then the experience is consistent. It's like, oh great, now I have to slog hours and hours on each level. Eventually you get bored, and that's what I think most people feel. Now I normally put up with it, so I agree that a challenge is a challenge and you should go up to it, but a lot of times it could also be a boring experience. Like Halo 2, a lot of people just gave up because it's just like, oh man, I just have to sit here in a corner, figure out when I'm full health, then try and attack these enemies at the right time. And that's the sort of thing that that I feel detracts from the experience. That it forces you to try and better yourself, but then when you reach that peak, there's no bettering yourself. It's just maintaining it, and maintaining it, I don't know. The fun is getting better. It's about improving and getting through the obstacles and doing and continuously improving. But having that main consistent, I'm hiding constantly and just figuring out how to attack, when to attack. Yeah, it's fun too. It's like a puzzle. I like puzzles too. But if I liked puzzles, I could go play a puzzle game. If I liked puzzles, I could go play scenario games like Call of Duty where you're following a scenario. Halo 2, I understand it and I enjoy it. I just don't think it's truly befitting of the experience.
Hey there, Limes Lion. So he's asking how long the podcast lasts from right now.
We don't really have a expectation. We're just trying to get into like longer than 2 hours right now, longer than the last episode. We're going to see how long it goes. I know that today we're a little bit limited or pressed for time because we have other things to do in a couple hours or so. But
yeah, I think I might end it within an hour, but we'll see. We'll try to keep the conversation going as far as it goes. We're just letting it be natural, you know what I mean?
We want everybody to have time to have their input, and give us an opinion on how they feel about what we're talking about. I don't know if everyone resonates with the Halo, because Halo 1, Halo 2 was like early 2000s type of thing. Maybe some of you are too young to have experienced it or haven't played it yet. Both games are like amazing. I think despite the problems of what we're talking about, Halo 1 was a 10 out of 10, and I think it came out in 2000. In 2004, Halo 2 came out. It came out a little weird with what they promised and under-delivered. It's still a 10 out of 10 to me, and Halo 3 is a 10 out of 10. We can talk...
So moderators, well, you join the Discord, and then you could ask us through there. If anyone wants to join our Discord, it's just called the Co-op Syndicate. You could find the... you can find the Discord. You can find the Co-op Syndicate Discord through mine if you like. So if you're already a member there, I have to actually set up that command. Hold on, let me give you guys. I'll drop the link in the chat real quick. Jordan, keep the conversation going for me.
Right. So going back to what I was saying before, it's about finding the right balance. It's difficult in an FPS shooter because you have those situations. How far is too much? Do you just change the entire game to make it seem like you're hiding in a corner, or do you allow for an experience in which you can still run out and do that? Because games like Doom that are what Halo 1 Combat Evolved followed on and iterated is those type of games where you have to figure out when to jump in, when to find the right time to pick up the certain pickups that you need to keep going. And another thing about Doom, which Halo doesn't have, is that Halo is stuck on the 2 weapon problem, where you're forced to always keep one weapon that is worth using, like the plasma pistol, or a weapon that's really powerful enough to get you across, and then you can use the other weapon that you really wanted to use, a pistol or battle rifle, whatever it is, whatever the case may be. Versus Doom, where you get a weapon wheel with like 8 different weapons, and you can choose when to use them whenever you want. And it's like, maybe I'll use the RPG for this specific guy because I want to kill him really fast, but then I'll use my minigun to take down the lower level guys. Then I'll use the rifle to aim from far away and try. You're kind of changing. There's a different dynamic in Halo. You have a lot of the situation in Legendary is you standing far away and shooting from far away at a range, like like a regular shooter. In Halo 1, you felt more close range because the weapons weren't necessarily far range in those times. You got more assault rifles and SMGs. In Doom, you get all those weapons. So at one point in the same scenario, you can be fighting one guy with a shotgun and a chainsaw, and the next second you have an RPG and shooting him from mid range and jumping around, and then the following second after that, you're using a sniper and doing like a far off battle all at the same time while there's 10 different enemies attacking you.
So you brought up Doom. Actually, I want to actually see some of this gameplay while we started that note.
Doom is going to be pretty interesting. I mean, I haven't seen Ultra Nightmare difficulty. I've seen Nightmare difficulty, but it's going to be interesting because Ultra Nightmare makes people cry like little kids. It makes them turn into little babies.
So let's check this out. Let's see what's going on here. Let me take this ad out. You don't get to advertise on our stream, bro. You ain't even a part of this.
Bruh.
All right, so let's see what's going on here. Right now, he's on a bridge looking back and forth. All right. So this is the first Doom, right?
Yeah, this is Doom 2016. Not necessarily the first Doom, but the first next.
So Emerald said what you said, Jordan. Most games cater to one style and keep it that way, which it becomes stagnant.
Right, and that's actually true because a lot of games end up. It's easier to balance one thing than to balance all those things. Which again, going off of what O Rivera 1997 said, and what I said at the beginning of the podcast, that's why the Soul series is the best, in my opinion, at creating proper difficult challenge, because it allows you to understand, grow, and implement the different mechanics in the game. There's like 10 different starting classes, fire, magic, defensive abilities, offensive abilities, just straight up swords, different types of swords. Some are sluggish and slow, some are pretty long and can only attack in one direction. Some can swipe, side to side. There's different types of mechanics in that game, which we're going to get to towards the end, hopefully, if we get that far, that shows what true balance is in a game. It allows you to do all those different types of things.
So Lime Lions is asking about online ranking systems, which is actually an interesting question, because that's one way to attempt to moderate difficulty in online play. So my opinion on that, specifically, online ranking systems work not 100%. There's a way where it works at some level, but I think, for example, skill-based matchmaking isn't an answer to appropriate online ranking. The reason why I say that is because it's really impossible to measure the proper metrics of what makes a player good or bad. Maybe a lot of players are just too inconsistent, and that could really end up messing things up. And then all that really ends up happening is that all your matches will just basically feel the same, like really hyper competitive and sweaty. There won't really be matches where you have opportunities to go off, and maybe you have opportunities to fight harder players. You'll just always be pretty much playing players that are constantly at your skill level.
Let me rein you back in there real quick, because I wanted to point out, like, PvP, honestly, we didn't come super prepared to talk about that topic, so we apologize. But that's actually something that we're going to do in a future episode, because it's something. There's a lot to talk about. There's what's the right balance? What is considered skill? Do they base it off of how many wins you have, how many kills you have, and then also like the player base too? Is there enough players to fill in those ranks? Is it that once people start and they get to level 50, what happens to the level 1 guys? Do they get to play level 1 players as well, or do they go and play level 50 because that's all that's left in the community? That's a whole different topic that we would have to discuss.
In short, though,
depth.
I feel like
Which
that's
Halo 2 and 3. I think were the best ones at doing that. But
yeah.
anyways,
I think the best solution to that is essentially having a ranked playlist separate from the like the other game types or whatever. Just because it'll really like that will truly allow you to choose to go ahead and play what difficulty you want to play. And yeah, I just feel like that's the best solution.
Yeah, and like I said, it's gonna be like a really hard topic to follow up on, because there's so many different things that can go into that. But I'll definitely come prepared in a future episode with that topic. Well, both of us will, to really talk on that, because that's like a really in-depth topic. But yeah, it's a good point you brought up about PvP and ranking systems. So anyway, to go back to Doom, you can see like in this game, kind of like a similar system where you're kind of choosing your sight lines and learning when to attack, how to attack. But you can see that the guy is like more up front because he has to figure out how to use his weapons, which aren't necessarily all far ranged, to properly seek out the right areas on the map to attack, and also to take down the more high priority enemies.
Yeah, he really seems like he's customizing his weapons a bit too, where that's absent in the Halo games that we just looked at. You just basically find the weapons across the map, and whatever you get's what you get. Here it looks like you could actually get your weapons, modify them, customize them to make them better.
The customization isn't like a regular game though. It's not like you're just increasing damage. It actually gives you a different ability for the weapon, like maybe an assault rifle that shoots mini rockets, for example. That's the kind of upgrade you get in. Oh
wow, this is crazy! There's a boss fight right now going on. A boss just popped out. It was a big fat blob demon, and he killed it fairly fast. But I noticed that he switched his weapons multiple times. He switched between like 3 or 4 different weapons, constantly, like consistently, and he was just laying damage on him,
because he has a weapon that can pierce, he has a weapon that can stagger, and he has a high damage weapon, and then he has, of course, the explosive weapon. So he's using all these different weapons to kind of figure out how he wants to go. And you can see in the map, he's not hiding behind a corner. He's running around the map quickly to take out the high priority enemies while doing a lot of crowd
He got
control.
a power up now too. It says quad damage. So it's pretty interesting that they added that, stuff that really can help out your stats if you pick them up, buffs and all that sort of thing. It actually adds a lot of variety and freshness to the gameplay as well.
This is and Halo has overshields and they have stuff like that, but in this game they obviously took it a bit further.
There's
like
armor.
The classic rage
I just saw him pick up armor.
Yeah, armor, which would be like his overshield, I guess, and then he has the regular health. But you can see like the game doesn't force you to sit down and stop. Rather, Doom is about moving fast and being strategic with how you fight. And in an Ultra Nightmare, instead of making you hide in the corner and change the game drastically, it pushes you further upon that principle that first created it, which is what I keep trying to say, where it challenges you to use your entire tool set and toolkit as best as possible so you can get across the game. And that's what the guy's doing. He learned how to use all his guns, when to use them, how to properly manage his ammo with what's available to him within the map, and then he uses that and pushes it even further along speed, aim, and prioritizing the right enemies to kill first. So that's how he's able to get across Ultra Nightmare. Rather than changing the dynamic of the game entirely into a meta, it's actually pushing him to use everything the game has at another level, or like to improve his skill set. That's what I wanted to say versus the Halo thing, where in Halo you get pushed to play one style only. This game balances out so you can use all these different styles, and then pushes you to go even further with them and make you really think about what you're using. It's not just I'm running in there and just guns a-blazing because Doom. It's now I die really fast, now I have to figure out how to do this and when I want to do it. You want to add anything?
No, yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I think also something that ends up keeping it a lot fresher, maybe it would have been a lot harder to do back in the first 2 Halos time, is that there's a lot of like an element of like platforming in this game and like traversal through the map. Like the map design seems to be a lot fresher, and also enemy variety seems to be pretty different. I mean, Halo did a good job of having different types of enemies and everything, but Doom looks like it went even a step further with that, so maybe that adds to it too. And it's just a lot more collectibles, different things you pick up.
I want to add too, this is Doom 2016 and Doom, the first Doom, you didn't have the ability to jump or do anything. You can only move in a Z axis, or sorry, in the next axis. There's only, omnidirectional movement. There's no jumping. There's no.
He just jumped. He just jumped. There's platforming.
I'm saying the original Doom. I'm talking about Doom.
Oh, like Doom.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Because this is just an advanced version or an improved version on the iteration. They're basically iterating on what originally made Doom. So all you see in Doom here, the differences, the jumping, the different power ups, the way that he can do takedowns at times to get health back, and that's all in the original Doom. But what they did here that made it more interesting is that they added the Z to the game. Z, for those of you who don't know, is the ability to jump up in a omnidirectional sense. Because you have the y-axis, which is just you jumping up or moving down in a level, and then you have the X, which is just moving around in walking around in the same height. But then the Z is you jumping forward and platforming in different directions at the same time. That's what gives Doom 2016 its edge compared to the previous games, and what makes it unique, because you're fighting enemies on different levels. They can shoot you from up above, down below. And you have to figure out when to jump down, when to hide, when to run, that sort of stuff, which is why I consider it to be a more balanced and fair fight. And these fights, to be honest with you, this is the early game. This is supposed to be the easy stuff too. Because when you get to the end game and you start fighting I forget the name of the boss, but like the spirit boss, I mean mini bosses that can literally teleport behind you and shock you and do all these extra crazy things, that's when the game starts getting hectic and you're like, oh snap. And you can't hide, because once you start hiding, they just teleport behind you.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I mean, I could be mistaken, but just from watching the gameplay that we're watching right now, it doesn't look like he's having the hardest time. But again, it also, I think, goes back to the fact that there's so many things that he's picking up while he's running through this map here that I just think that it's just a different type of difficulty. Honestly, I want to try this game out for myself and see what opinions I form then. But I guess we just have to find out if that difficulty is actually one that's satisfying or not.
We showed off Halo 2 Legendary from a guy that died a little bit, so we can kind of make our point of like how fast you die and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure we can find a player that isn't that great at Doom either, and he kind of dies a lot in Ultra Nightmare, because in Ultra Nightmare, in reality, if you die, you start the whole game again. It's a permadeath type of difficulty. But there's people in Halo 2 that have gone like literally no damage, never get touched, and they figure out how to break out of the map and do this and that, or just literally destroy the entire, like all the enemies without even bothering.
So Emerald here on Twitch chat said, for example, even though it's a gacha game, Naruto Ultimate Ninja Blazing is shutting down because it became stagnant. It didn't change, but the company and the publisher won't shut down or die out because they have other games that make more money. So that's interesting.
Well, what were we trying to say? I'm sorry, we probably read this a little late. What were we trying to say in regards to that?
So,
if you don't mind sharing.
So, okay, look, it ties into what he was saying before in the chat. Let me read it entirely so that way you guys have the full context. Some game companies just don't see that they need a different style to keep their game from becoming repetitive and stagnant. That's why you see game series die out along with the company that made it. For example, even though it's a gacha game, Naruto Ultimate Ninja Blazing is shutting down because it became stagnant and didn't change, but the company and publisher won't shut down and die because they have other games that make more money.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, that's actually a pretty tough topic, because gacha games aren't meant to be different in any sense. They're meant to be about you picking up your favorite character and just spending money. I mean, that's actually the pay to win difficulty, which we'll probably touch on later. In its own respect, it's kind of hard. Gacha games are cheap. They're not meant to do anything other than make you spend money. So,
well, you know what? You didn't really read it in the script, so why not just talk about it right now?
Because I wanted to get to the next. All right, whatever. We'll talk about it. Okay, so I think a good game. I mean, the problem with that game and a lot of other gacha games, even Genshin Impact, which Genshin Impact I consider to be the best gacha game, is it falls in the predatory system where you always going to feel like you have to buy a better character and spend more money in order to improve how you play the game and how you get through it. It sucks. I know it does. To feel like you have to pay more money to get somewhere in a game. It's unfortunate, but that's just how those type of games are. The fact that the game is dying out is because, one, people didn't like the gameplay that much. They weren't interested in what the characters brought to the table when they got them. And then on top of that, Naruto has I would argue that Naruto doesn't have as many lovable characters as, say, Dragon Ball Z or
My man said characters.
I would say it doesn't have as many lovable characters as like another anime and stuff like that. Now I could be wrong. You know, there's obviously gonna be the Naruto fans that are gonna come out and, you know, defend Ino and Itachi and, you know, Sasuke and say, oh, but what about all these characters? Yeah, I agree. But a gacha game is meant to make you like the characters. If you don't like the characters, it's done. In Genshin Impact, like each character, they made every character broken and overpowered in their own way to give the incentive to try and grab that character and take him through the adventure of going through the long, sluggish leveling up systems, because they want you to actually pay more money. So if a gacha game doesn't do that, it kind of, you know, ruins the experience. Now, the way that they do difficulty in those games is that they do the pay to win difficulty. They forcibly bottleneck you by not giving you enough materials and stats to beat the game, right? Then what they do is they start forcing you into world tiers. And by that, what I mean is they start pushing up the difficulty of the gameplay, and the enemies start going up in higher levels, so that you constantly feel like, oh crap, I need to spend money to get more level up material and all these things to help you get past the levels. But before you know it, you're spending less money, you're trying to get this character powerful, you're not really getting anywhere, and unless you spend like thousands of dollars, literally your house, like your whole mortgage, you're paying off your whole mortgage inside the game, and you're not getting anywhere. And then when you realize that what you're doing is you're literally just going through the exact same 3 levels with probably a different art design to get to the higher levels for the sake of improving your character and making them look as pretty as possible with the right costume, the right weapon, the right this and that, whatever. But at the end of the day, all you did was just waste money. You didn't actually achieve anything. You didn't achieve anything. There's no challenge in it. You're not getting anywhere. What did I do to get my character there? I just spent a lot of money. It's what Michael's joke from the last game: credit card the game. You know, you're literally just putting in a credit card. You're just, whoever spends the most wins. So that's kind of what sucks about gacha games, and that's why a lot of those games die, because they already made their money. They don't care, and if it's not producing any more money past its original intention, they're not going to support it.
So yeah, for me, my personal opinion on gacha games, I don't play any of them because I think it's I don't think it's healthy to support those companies financially. I prefer supporting companies that make games with a little bit more thought. And to be honest, anyway, when I play anything that's remotely gacha or pay to win, everything always usually feels pretty boring up until like everything just feels bad unless you like pay money for the game. Pretty much, like it doesn't actually feel fun to play the game unless you pay money for it. So that's not the kind of experience I look out for anyway. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say that adding or making a game stagnant on purpose, or just overbearingly difficult unless you pay for something, is definitely the wrong kind of difficulty to introduce to a game.
Another issue with gacha games is that it's entirely up to the character that you're using. If you're always going to start off with the free-to-play bad characters to entice you to play new characters. But if you're not getting new characters or working towards them, and the only way to get them is to pay more money, you're going to get bored, and it's going to become a stagnant experience, because your entire experience is based off how your character plays, which is kind of like what I'm experiencing with Genshin Impact. The only difference is that Genshin Impact applied the Breath of the Wild model to an extent, so it's fun to go and explore and seek out the different little abilities, because I'm not just clicking on a loading screen and then going to a new background area to just attack enemies and get loot.
But tied into difficulty, because remember, that's what we're talking about.
Right. I'm going out to explore this world. Now, the way that they do the difficulty is the same way that they do, regular gacha games. You eventually get forced or bottlenecked. Well, Genshin Impact doesn't do this, but most other games do that. They bottleneck you into a certain type of world tier to push on the difficulty and make you feel like you're progressing, but you're really not. You're just spending more money to get there. And that's what pay to win difficulty is. It's literally you just paying more money to succeed. It's like you're not beating the challenge for the fun of it. You're beating the challenge with your money. So it's like, how fast can I blow my paycheck? That's the joy I get out of it. How fast can I blow this paycheck in this game by pressing buy? And that's pay to win difficulty. Just to sum it up, I don't think there's much more to say about it other than it's just you spending more money, and it's The game is based on how much money you spend.
So I don't know if you noticed, but what you went on your dialogue there about Gacha Games, I started dancing a little bit, and Emerald said that my Millie Rock is very crispy. However, he said that his might be better. So we have to have you on eventually, Emerald, for like a dance competition.
Oh, of course.
We'll put you on Discord or whatever, and that way we can see who dances better. It's probably going to be you because I'm a mediocre dancer, but we'll see. Anyways, so speaking on the gacha difficulty, now I think we might want to talk about like a hack and slash beat 'em up type deal in games like Devil May Cry and Ninja Gaiden. I don't know about you, but when it comes to Devil May Cry, I think Devil May Cry 1 I actually did try playing on a harder difficulty. Devil May Cry 3 I haven't even beaten yet, and that's on normal. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that Devil May Cry 3 actually had that infamous issue that for some reason when it was ported to the US or something, every difficulty was actually let's say normal was actually hard, and then easy was supposed to be normal or something like that.
That's what they've been saying for a long time. They say the same thing about Ninja Gaiden. The problem is that for them, normal difficulty was something different than it is to the American crowd. So, like, God mode or Titan mode in God of War or whatever it is in the new game now, because I haven't played it yet, please don't spoil, is technically like hard mode for them. And for them, hard, like legendary mode or super hard mode or whatever, is something completely different. So Ninja Gaiden, the first one, Ninja Gaiden Sigma, had to incorporate an easy mode that was essentially still a normal mode by American standards, and that's just the difference between, you know, Japanese playtesters versus American playtesters. There's two different types of experiences. That's kind of hard to explain. But here we're gonna have Devil May Cry on screen, and we're gonna see like how well the player puts together or puts to use his toolset, or in other words, like the different weapons and combos to kind of overcome the challenger. Because he's right now playing on Heaven or Hell, which I think is one of the upper.
This is Devil May Cry 4 though.
Yeah, this is Devil May Cry 4. No, that's fine. I mean, Devil May Cry 4, 1, 2, and 3, they're kind of the same experience. Devil May Cry 4 is pretty much like Devil May Cry 3 but HD. And they all have some insane, you know, forms of difficulty that people can sometimes become extremely bored from. And that's kind of the thing that I wanted to point out with Mike, which he just said there, like Devil May Cry 3 on normal, it was taking forever, it took too long, and I kind of lost interest. That's how I feel about Halo 2 Legendary. It just takes too long. I lose interest, and it's like and the challenge is already gone. Like, I get the point, but I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. Like, I feel like I'm just doing the same thing over and over again to overcome the challenges. And that's kind of like what it feels like. All
right, so let's see what's going on here, because right now on the screen we have a boss. He just beat him instantly, though. Okay, you chose something weird, man. Every single time you choose a video, you always pick something weird.
Heaven or Hell is
Isn't that Heaven or Hell? Isn't that where it's easy but like risky? Like high risk, high reward.
I forget that it's like it's like a one-shot mode. One second.
Hold on. I'll let him look that up. Meanwhile, I'll keep talking about this. So, yeah, my experience with Devil May Cry 1 and Devil May Cry 3. Devil May Cry 2 was actually pretty easy. I don't know why. It was just a weird game. But Devil May Cry 1, I think, was a very good amount of challenging. Like, it was actually kind of hard to get into. But once you got the hang of it, like, you know, working with the funky camera angles and stuff like that, all it really was, you know, I think the bosses were made harder. Obviously, you had to be more careful. You had to learn the patterns more perfectly and stuff, and use your tool set more completely. Once you got the hang of the funky camera angle and everything, you're pretty much set.
I think I found one of the bosses that you had difficulty with.
Yeah, now in Devil May Cry 3, I don't know how to describe it. It was just hard. It was like hard from start to finish. Even on normal, the enemies were pretty punishing and stuff. So, just
sorry, I'm having a difficult time pinpointing the section I want to show off.
Just go towards the beginning because I didn't get that far into the game.
No, but I found the area where you got stuck at the worm boss, the Leviathan, like being stuck inside the Leviathan.
Being stuck inside the Leviathan.
Right. I remember you playing it. One second, guys.
So I don't recall what you're saying. The Leviathan.
It's been a while.
Oh, are you saying the creature that swallowed me or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I think I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, this is it. This is it right here. So the boss is towards the end of that. Okay, there it is.
All right, go ahead and.
All right, so
do your magic.
All right, so just to explain what's going on here. Right now, this is a boss fight in Devil May Cry 3. It's inside the Leviathan. It was basically like a creature of some sort. It's like a demon, a massive demon that swallowed you. It's basically like you're playing inside. I forget what type of creature it was. It must like a worm or a whale or something like that.
It's called the Leviathan.
Yeah, so it's the Leviathan. And the boss basically is you're inside him, and you make it to a part where like you're fighting like 3 of his organs or something at the same time, and they count as 3 separate bosses. Basically, the middle piece has the main health bar, where if you deplete that, you're pretty much home free, like you're just done. And then you have the right side, which is like a laser, and then the left side, which is like another.
And this guy makes you look like you're bad. I'm sorry. Like, that boss you had trouble with, the Leviathan, Michael actually had a lot of trouble figuring out how to properly combo, keep him off his back, and then fight the enemies. Not to put you down, but I'm just saying this guy, like, he did it without getting
of course. The thing is, this is a speedrunner, so you're never.
Yeah, he's always going to be a master. They're always going to be masters of what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
Exactly. A speedrunner will typically never fail at their game. If they do, they consider it a bad run. But yeah, this is actually a 100% speedrun, so this person's completely mastered the game. Obviously, look at all the different things he's doing and all the attention he's paying to all these enemies in order to do it. Normally, you would have been dead by now if you would have eaten some of those attacks. And notice how he's even reacting to things that are off screen, never dropping a combo. He's being extremely consistent. But this isn't the level of gameplay that you'd get from a normal gamer. Honestly, look at all these things that he's juggling at once in order to play at this level. It goes to show that for you to play this at the highest of levels, you're gonna be badass. Like, you got to know what you're doing.
One thing I wanted to point out too, from a guy that has Ninja Gaiden under his belt, the Master Ninja difficulty, which I don't think is actually as hard as Devil May Cry, but that's always debatable. I mean, Devil May Cry has its own way of being hard because of the mechanics it has, as well as other games like Wolverine and I don't know, a bunch of hacker slashers that have been hard. If the game allows you to abuse the jump, because by 99% of the time when you jump, you can pretty much dodge pretty much everything.
Well, that's a good point that you brought up there, because you could actually see that this guy's pretty much constantly jumping. Even when he was fighting those 3 spiders, he was doing a combo on one of them. He was using the sword, then he was jumping, doing a jump sword attack. Then he switched to the nunchucks. He was doing air combos to the nunchucks, making sure he was dodging every single time another enemy came at him, keeping his eyes on the enemies that were surrounding him. Never, he didn't even take a single hit, but they were attacking pretty much constantly all throughout that. Right. Any lesser player would have been caught off guard and just died right there.
Devil May Cry is one of those games where it's kind of, you have to really walk into it and understand what you're getting into, because it's not going to be like a regular hack and slasher where it's going to sit down, give you a full tutorial and explain to you what each move does. There's moves in the game that you don't get a tutorial for and you have to figure out, but that's the fun of it, figuring out all these things you didn't know you did a thing. And maybe Michael and I will one day sit down together and fully go on and beat these games on hard mode together rather than do it separately, because I don't think there's a point of us doing it separately. But the point is, we will work together and try and figure out these things, maybe show it on stream someday. But the point is, the game challenges you to use your full tool set. You have to learn when to use your combos, when to switch styles, when to attack properly, that sort of stuff. Can you search up Ninja Gaiden?
Yeah, you have it here actually.
No, yeah, but we're gonna do easy mode first and then master.
All right, guys, go ahead and do it. Go ahead. Let me hold on. Let me see where we're at though. All right, so Devil May Cry. So Devil May Cry. Yeah, it comes down to what Jordan's saying. It really tests your knowledge of the game and tests your awareness and everything. And maybe me and him are just scrubs for not being able to really handle the difficulty all that well. But yeah, I look forward to revisiting it. And are we gonna sit here and complain about the difficulty that Devil May Cry 3 is at? Or is it something that we should say, we should honor the spirit of how difficult it is and then just try to, get good? We should just better ourselves in order to try to rise up and meet that standard, because the game might be lesser for making it easy. Devil May Cry, the whole thing about it is that it's supposed to be a very difficult experience to begin with. So maybe making something super challenging is all right. you know, if I can't handle normal, hey, go down to easy. And then any players that like playing at the hardest difficulty, you just leave it for them, and that's it.
But what I'm pointing out with the difficulty is that despite it's something that is harder than what we can achieve, we feel like there's a path to that higher difficulty because it's so open for experimentation that allows us to understand why we died, figure out why. Now, in these games, you have to pay a lot of mind and attention to what the enemy's attack pattern is, and it can be pretty annoying when you've like been there for 100 deaths. You're like, damn, I keep getting hit by that stupid attack, and you're trying to figure out how to dodge it. You can't, and there's a bunch of different mechanics to understand how to attack, and you're trying to figure out. Sometimes you just don't figure it out, and it can be pretty tiresome, which is why I understand why some people might prefer difficulty in a shooter versus difficulty in a hacker slasher, because in a shooter you can just hide in the back versus most of the time, versus a hacker slasher where you're forced to always get in there in the melee range and attack someone, you know. So that's something that you have to consider when you're deciding on what's too difficult for you and what type of challenge you enjoy. But of course, these are all debatable. On screen right now, we put on Ninja Gaiden because I wanted to show off Ninja Gaiden difficulty. This is actually normal difficulty, mind you. This isn't even like the hard mode.
I actually, before I allow Jordan to get into the game, while you guys enjoy that gameplay there, I just wanted to give you guys a quick story about Ninja Gaiden difficulty. You know, me and Jordan are friends since way back, since like high school, and I know that he's probably going to have some fun things to tell you about the difficulty in the Ninja Gaiden series, because I remember there was one day where we went to, a friend's house, or it used to be our friend, and we just went there. We were chilling at this guy's house, and Jordan was playing games in the background. He was playing, I think, Ninja Gaiden 2, Ninja Gaiden 3 on the hardest difficulty. And I think it was, there was a point where he was just fighting a bunch of guys with rocket launchers and he just kept dying. Or maybe it's something with a T-Rex. I don't know. This game's super random. And yeah, and my man got so angry that he straight up ripped his controller in half at some point.
That was back in the day when I was more impatient and childish.
Yeah, like I kid you not, like I saw him playing, like I was right there, and this man literally, he kept dying. I was like, oh my god, that's bullcrap. Oh my god, no. And then he was like, and then he just popped the controller. And I was like, yo, you good, buddy?
Patience is very important. Patience is virtue. Hey, that's the saying. You gotta. I didn't know it as a kid. But I learned the ways of Mr. Miyagi, being patient, understanding things, and, wax on, wax off. And that's how I got past, Ninja Gaiden's Master Ninja. But there's just sometimes where the difficulties just feels cheap because they do stupid things like adding insane difficulty spikes with rocket launcher enemies and all that. At least with Ninja Gaiden, it's consistent because when you do it in Master Ninja, that's what it is, and they don't have that in the normal difficulty, which we're going to show you now. You saw how crazy it was, and the guy was like near death. On normal difficulty, that's considered hard in American standards, just so everyone knows. Like, I'm gonna just say it straight up, we have to have a little bit of humility. That's literally hard mode for us, normal for Japanese. But now I'm gonna show you Master Ninja on the same game, and you're gonna see how it's gonna change drastically. They're gonna add different enemies. The guy's gonna have to play much smarter, much faster. In Ninja Gaiden, what I liked about it compared to Devil May Cry is that Devil May Cry has a stiff, tanky-like feeling from old school games. Ninja Gaiden was loose and fast-paced, so it kind of like Doom. So it makes you. It pushes you on edge to move faster than what the game allows for. You can see here, like, the ninjas now have explosive kunais, and they jump more. They're more aggressive.
Is this the same level from the one that we were watching before?
It's literally the same level. This is level 1, but Master Ninja did. On the same spot, too. This is the same balcony.
Oh, yeah, I can see. So before, just to the people who are listening, before we were on the same balcony, outside the same place, whatever, and now it looks like it might, I don't know if it's the same type of enemies, but it looks like they actually have longer blades, and they're consistently throwing bombs now, which is actually crazy.
They're red.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, this player's playing completely differently.
And you can see this guy's incorporating, again, what I was mentioning before. If you have the ability to abuse jump, because jumping helps you get out of a lot of situations. But you're going to notice this guy is going to have a more impulsive playstyle, attacking in with a swan dive type of attacks, or condor dive from Street Fighter. Condor dive for anyone that's played Street Fighter 4.
You mean like a dive kick?
Yeah, that he's gonna do. No, well, he's not doing a dive. He's gonna do a dive slash, because obviously he does it with a sword. But my point is, you're gonna see like he's doing a lot of takedowns and moving quickly to dispatch enemies where he can, using the invincibility frames. For anybody that doesn't know what invincibility frames are, it's it's a fighting game mechanic where you do an attack that kind of, or a defensive move that helps you get past a certain attack or survive it. by making it go through you. So
this guy is very interestingly just waiting for one enemy to come after him at a time, and he seems to be pre-charging a special move of some sort that's an execution.
The execution attack, yeah, because he knows it's kind of like the shooter thing. He's taking his time to shoot one enemy at a time. It's just a smart strategy, but he's not resorting to it the entire time. See, like this way, he's doing it and he's preparing for it. But now all the enemies are next to him, so he's gonna have to be able to react to them where possible. And
so let me see how he plays here. He repeated the same attack a couple of times there, though. That's to be noticed.
The takedowns are going to be repetitive.
Oh, okay. So it's when they're low health, he can just take them out.
When they're missing a limb, he gets to take them out. And okay. That's also a strategy. He's using what I was saying, the invincibility frames, to get past certain attacks. You know, in Devil May Cry, you don't have takedowns like that can help you get across fights. So you have to figure out how to move around the map with, you know, jumps, attacks, and all that sort of stuff. But that's like the difference in the game. You have to figure out when to do the takedowns, how to go into a fight.
Wow, that's a lot of ninjas. He just turned a corner and there was like 10 guys waiting for him.
10 guys, because that's what they did. They literally just, like, you know, increased the amount of enemies as much as possible to make it difficult.
Yo, my guy, I'm sorry to tell you, but this guy makes you look like you're trash.
Oh, yeah, no, he does. And I like I said, humility. I'm garbage. I've beaten the Master Ninja mode, so I feel proud that I did.
Yo, this guy's making it look easy. Yeah, like how the other guy beat the boss that I was stuck on super easy. This man is also just dicing up these ninjas like crazy.
That have insane level of skill set that we probably will never be able to reach unless we spend our lives playing. And by the time we make it to their skill set, they're like, they've already beaten like 10 other games, but we finally beat the game. You know, it's an interesting point, because these are all games that, you know, turned off a lot of people with their difficulty. At the same time, if there's no challenge in the game, there's nothing to aspire to, then what are you doing? I don't know if you want to add any closing comments before we get to RPGs.
No, honestly, I think we did a good job talking about Devil May Cry and Ninja Gaiden. Essentially, what it really comes down to is just building that mechanical skill, being hyper aware of the enemies, their patterns, how they play, and understanding that the way that they typically tend to inject more difficulty into their campaigns and stuff is making the enemies tougher, making them not only, you know, have more health and you less health, but also making them like attack like a lot more aggressive, you know, like making them a lot more aggressive.
Attack differently.
Yeah, and attack differently and stuff too. And then also the other thing is maybe if you got used to different situations in when you played through the game on easy, normal, hard, whatever, maybe they throw you a curveball here and there in their harder difficulty, like, you know, like how there in Ninja Gaiden, the same situation, instead of fighting regular dudes, you were fighting like a bunch of guys with like the Wolverine claws and bombs and all that stuff, just to make it extra crazy and really increase that difficulty. So I think that's fair enough for us to move over to the RPG section.
Right. So now with RPG, this is the part where most people are gonna agree with us, or you know, might feel more sentimental, or, you know, be able to relate to more, because a lot of times in these games, especially in the old ones, you have to rely a lot on what stats you're doing and how you're setting up. And a lot of times when you do that and you spend like 20 hours grinding, doing this and that, just to find out you did it the wrong way, it kind of ruins the experience, because you have to then go back, load up your save file, or worst of all, restart the entire game to make sure that you get the right setup to fight the right enemies at the right time with whatever thing. And then a lot of times, you know, balancing
if I can add to that, you know, we're going to talk about the Division here in a minute. One of the experiences I had with the Division is that a lot of the times what ends up happening in RPG with having to pre-plan and really get to know the game a little bit more and get the right things in place is that there's some situations where mechanically you really feel like you're there, and just because the statistics aren't right, you're thrown in situations where it feels like you should be winning, but you just can't. You know, like one of my first experiences in the Division was that I was doing side quests by myself, and I came across this boss that, you know, I figured I'm in a shooter. It's, you know, the Division's a third-person shooter, so you're just shooting people with guns and stuff, but there's RPG elements. And I was pretty decent at the game, I would say, or at least I thought I was, you know, just mechanically speaking. I was getting headshots off, I was staying in cover decently enough, and I got this mission where I had to go fight this guy who was surrounded by a gang, like his gang members or something. And so, you know, I was just smoking his gang, no problem. I was kind of underleveled for the mission, but then I finally make it to the boss, and, you know, maybe I shoot him once or twice in the head, and he just shoots me once, I die. I'm like, okay. I try it again. I die. I try it again, I die. Whatever. But each time I get a little bit better. The part where I finally got frustrated with the game and just stopped playing it because, I'm not really that big of an RPG guy. I just figured I'd try it because it looked like an interesting third-person shooter. Was that I make it back to this boss and I basically emptied. I stunned him with a grenade. I hit him with another grenade, and then I emptied like 3 clips of my assault rifle and like maybe a clip or 2 from my pistol in his face. And he doesn't have armor or anything by this point. He was left with like the tiniest hair of health. And then my man just proceeded to end my life like it was nothing. And I was just like, okay, this is bullcrap. This is clearly RPG BS.
Welcome back, Limes. Welcome back.
It kind of turned me off a little bit. So that's what Jordan's referring to when he says that you need to have your strategies in place. He says you have to have the right equipment, the right level. He's going to elaborate a little bit more about that because he's the RPG player and the Destiny fanboy wee sucker here, whatever it is.
Destiny fanboy.
All right, yeah. So tell them about it.
So in Mike's division, and that's the thing too, like he comes from a background like hacker slasher and shooters like Halo,
fighting games.
I graduated from those to RPGs and other things because I wanted longer games that weren't just like 5-hour campaigns or whatever. I wanted to have a full 50-hour campaign if I felt like it. And I kind of saw. I normally try to sit back, look at the whole picture and see what the developers are trying to do, which is why sometimes it's a lot easier for me to play other games than Michael would. It might take him a lot longer to kind of appreciate or understand what's being given to him, even if he might dislike it. But that thing that he was saying is a true point. He's a person that just likes to grab guns, go in and just kill. That's his fun. Division's not necessarily like that. It's a game where you have to actually consider what you're
For
using.
me, it's about the immersion in that aspect. It's a little weird when you play a game and you shoot someone in the face 20 times and
they don't die. Yeah, exactly. But again, Division's that kind of game where you have to understand what you're doing, the stats you're getting. Like when I went back and I showed him after a year or so of him giving up with it, I went back and I showed him, what he did wrong, he could have done differently with the stats and the weapons he did. He had a slightly better experience. He was like, oh, okay, maybe I could get behind this in the future if I get into the mood for this. Because I kind of showed him what went wrong. But that's the thing. It's like these type of games, it's not about necessarily just the shooting. It's about the micromanagement of the stats, and that's the fun behind it. It's making your character powerful, learning what gear to get, how to properly do the stuff in the game, so that you can get past those higher difficulty areas. So if you want to put up the gameplay real quick,
sure.
An unbalanced area in Division is the legendary difficulty. You have to have extremely preset stats to get through. Now, people have been discovering over time, after years, the community works together. That's what I like about looters. They bring a lot of the community together, so they start working, together and figuring out things together like they would in a Legend of Zelda game. The community's been figuring out ways to make all the other different playstyles kind of viable for legendary mode, but it's clearly obvious that there's a kind of like a steep difficulty spike where as soon as you get to legendary versus the original difficulty, normal and hard, you have to really have your stats on point. Like right now in the game, I could fight challenging difficulty, I guess, fairly well. Like to me it feels like normal, but when I go to hardcore it feels kind of like hard mode. And then legendary is just insane still to me. I can't do it by myself. I would have to be with a four player team. And to Mike's point, that's the kind of thing that would turn him off, because I experienced it too, even with all the stats and grinding that I've done in the game, where I spent hours getting all this stuff, and then I can still get one shot by a couple enemies if it's the right circumstance for the enemy to kill me. Now granted, I've been pretty good about using my stats sparingly and correctly, so that way I don't get damaged. You can see this guy, he's getting hurt here and there. He's having to he's trying to be more active about it, but ultimately this is a cover shooter, so you get pushed back to being more strategic and taking cover where possible, because the game forces you to play that way due to the fact that you have to understand what stats you're using. You have to really consider what weapon hits hard, how to customize it properly, what armor supplements that, what armor gives you bonus damage, what armor gives you bonus defense. Is it worth it to do bonus defense? Is it worth it to scope your damage?
Yeah, right. Like right now, I'm looking at the screen here, and we have this guy running around. Obviously, there's a lot of the elements that a regular shooter would have here, because this is kind of a combination of a third-person shooter and an RPG game as well. So he is running from cover to cover, obviously shooting and stuff. But then this is also like a looter RPG game, so he's also stopping by like treasure chests, making sure he can find any digital equipment. Right now, he just threw a grenade and he got in cover. And if you can see the gameplay, every single time he shoots someone, numbers comes up, so you're aware of how much damage you're dealing. Whether it's because you're using a certain weapon, maybe a certain ability, you want to be able to keep track of that because it is an RPG game after all.
You want to know if your efforts were effective or not.
Exactly.
Now we're gonna cut real quick to the other game I wanted to show off with RPG, and I think this is the perfect example of why RPG difficulty is so hard to balance, and it's because, hold on. All right, this. Just to let everybody know, this is going to be Dragon Age Origins, the Harvester from I believe the 3rd expansion on Nightmare difficulty. So this is I'm a big trophy hunter, so I tried to do this for the trophy, and I got through it cheaply.
Ew, what is that, man? That looks like a freaking rat, a skull rat, dude.
Yeah, it's their Darkspawn lore thing, where it's like some crazy enemy that like harvests life forms in the underground. I don't remember the lore behind it because I beat this like 10 years ago or 12 or 8 years ago.
That guy looks like he needs a shower, man. All right, so it looks like the party's walking up on a boss here. They're all just kind of fighting him.
Yeah, so this is gonna be like one of those classic party games. Right now the guy's playing on Nightmare. If you notice, he's playing as a mage. Now, a little thing, and I think a lot of Dragon Age people, if they ever watch this, and are part of the community, they understand what the game is. They're gonna resonate with this, what I'm about to say. This boss is so poorly balanced on Nightmare mode that literally, no matter what character you picked, if you picked anything that wasn't the mage set up to do like Tempest AoE attacks, you were never going to beat this boss. Because after a certain amount of time, once the health starts dropping, he starts going through phases. Another way that games become interesting with challenges is that they change the phase to kind of make the enemy fight differently and give you a different, thing to fight against or to think about while fighting the enemy. It changes the attitude of the enemy. The thing is that what happened with this boss is that once he goes into rage mode, he becomes disgustingly overpowered to the point where like he starts jumping around and can I think he jumps around and he just becomes explosive, and all his attacks are pretty much like 2-shot or 3-shot or something.
Oh wait, what happened here? Did someone just die, or is he stopping to heal?
You can stop to strategize. That's an ability in the game. You can stop to strategize and all that stuff. Now this guy's doing it pretty well, to be honest with you. He did the right stats because he fought hard to make sure that his characters would be prepared to fight this boss the way it needed to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's only phase 1, and that's the problem. Now when he starts going into phase 2, and that the enemy split up, the boss splits up into the smaller one, it becomes a different dynamic, and the enemy hits hard. He starts jumping around. There you go. He starts jumping around. And I believe at the end there's a phase 3, and phase 3 is where it becomes broken, where like literally players have to figure out how to glitch into a wall so that they wouldn't get damaged and they could finally kill the boss. When you have to resort to breaking the game and explaining it in order to beat the challenge, it's no longer challenging or fun. It's just a balance, and it's like you don't feel rewarded for all the effort you did in the game. You just feel like you got past it, and that's the problem with RPG. And Michael will share in that sentiment, I'm pretty sure, because that's how he feels a lot of times, where he doesn't feel accomplished out of the difficulty. He feels like he's rewarded for meeting the stat standard, or the stats necessary. The stat
my biggest problem with RPGs is that a lot of the times I want like my mechanical skills tested. I don't necessarily want my how do I say it? This is going to be a little bit difficult to say because like I'm not really a big fan of like grinding and trying to find like the right equipment and stuff. Like that's not necessarily what I like. Now I do like building classes and like kind of strategizing in that sort of way to be able to fight better. That's one of the more enjoyable aspects of like, let's say, a game like Terraria to me, where I really like getting certain armor sets that give you different ability boosts and stuff like that. But there's a lot more to Terraria than just that. Whereas a lot of RPGs, to me, it just feels like kind of toned down combat compared to the more realistic counterparts. Yeah, and then so an RPG would basically feel like just like a less realistic version of their more immersive counterparts, with the added on grinding and finding loot and stuff like that, which would really be, I wouldn't enjoy it as much as like, you know, something that's like faster paced, or you know, I guess it's just to me more about being faster paced or feeling more like adequate, because something about Terraria to me just feels like the combat like is actually like the difficulty is just right, whereas, you know, like I said in The Division, where I was really trying to go ahead and, you know, shoot someone in the head with like 5 clips from my assault rifle and they're still alive, doesn't make sense. In Terraria, maybe I'm fighting a giant dragon or whatever, and they kill me in one shot because I have like no armor, I'm literally wearing like trash bags as my armor or something.
Granted, Michael's experience with Division is Division 1. Division 2 obviously has better balancing in that regard, for the most part, except for the higher difficulties, but he has a very valid point. It's about that. I mean, you could always argue, you know, the grinding thing is important because it gives you the sense of like, oh, I'm becoming better as I fight these enemies because of experience and leveling and stats. It kind of replaces the whole, oh, I'm repeatedly fighting these guys and learning how to get around their fighting style. But at the same time, like the thing about RPGs is like when it feels too much like you're constantly doing that and it's the only way to get past the game. Like, yeah, I understand you have to learn how to fight the enemy, but when you what I think Lines here, what he's saying in our Twitch channel is, he wrote, I agree with Mike about grinding. It's not fun unless you love the game religiously. And it's not just loving the game religiously, but also grinding religiously, like making sure that is part of your lifeblood. Now, a lot of people can say, oh, just do the grind, that's what it's for. It's like, yeah, man, but if the grind's not fun, it's not interesting. You're just, you know, killing enemies just to kill enemies to get better stats. It doesn't give you a sense of accomplishment. It gives you a reward, sure, but you don't feel rewarded for what your efforts are. You're just meeting the stats requirements. So now we're gonna transition into the last game that I brought to the table, which is Demon Souls. I think Demon Souls in the Soul series is probably the best form of balance in terms of challenge, difficulty, and RPG mechanics and all that, because it gives you this wide berth, or better said, wide range of different skills and abilities that you can use without forcing you to feel like you have to play meta.
By the way, Lime, about your comment on SBMM and Smurfs, we're gonna actually have a future episode on that, so we're not gonna bring that up too much here, because that's more about like a developer's decision on how to make ranked play, and it's players versus players, so it's not like programmed difficulty. That's more like competitive. Which we'll I think we might make that the next episode. I don't know. We'll see.
We might touch on it real quick towards like the end, because just to finish off Demon Souls, so we can finally say that we got past one of our topic lists. But yeah, we are going to talk about that because that's actually something that's very important. In PvP, I think Halo and Halo.
Before the end, we should talk about how that impacts difficulty for PvP. I think just real quick.
Yeah. Okay, we can touch on it real quick.
Yeah. So. For me, what do I think about Demon Souls? I think honestly it's a phenomenal game. You know, I've only played Demon Souls and Dark Souls. I've played Demon Souls and Dark Souls, both of which I found excellent. For me, Demon Souls is a little bit more memorable. Not sure why. It really just sticks into my mind. It might be because I probably played that one first, so it just really stuck. And man, everything about it is just super cool, you know. There's something to be said about it not overly telling you too much about the world and kind of you being thrown in there and exploring it by yourself. It really has that old game feel that I appreciate from games like you know, maybe some of the Legend of Zeldas and stuff, where it's really about exploration and all that. That's
the fun of that type of game, is that it throws you in there with no type of real tutorial, or it just gives you the base information that you need to play the game, and then it rewards you by learning how to play the game. But the fun part of it is that in no point in the game do you feel like you can't get past something if you don't try.
But it also punishes it punishes you in a way that you have fun, because like, let's say
it challenges you to learn something new.
Yeah, it really does challenge you, and it does so in an interesting, unique way, because every single enemy that you find there is just different, and they're hard, but in a different way. You know, like for example, there's the base like zombie characters or whatever, I forgot their names are, in the first world. That, you know, they're not hard. Like, you kill them like very fast, But if you make the mistake of walking too close to them, or maybe you get into a narrow, like, packed hallway, and you're surrounded by a bunch of them, and they do that move where they kind of freak out and just, like, wail on you, they slap you around a little bit, you die, and you lose all your souls. And then you're like, oh man, now I have to go back to the world and make it through all those dangerous enemies again to get to where I died and get those souls. And that's kind of like, I don't know, it's just interesting the way that that it makes you learn that way.
And what I wanted to add too is, like, the reason why it works in Demon Souls and Dark Souls compared to other games is because of the way that they do the balancing. If you're a player that, like Mike, you don't like stats, you don't care much for getting the min-maxed armor sets, like, prepared for battles, or having the right magic attacks or whatever, you can still beat the game without any of that. There's literally an actual challenge and built-in system called the Barbarian Run, where you can literally just pick the Barbarian class. You can't level up, put on armor, or do whatever, and all you do is literally run at level 1 through the entire game. And it's balanced because to allow that, the game to let you do that. And that's what I find interesting. It's that it allows you to do all these different things for the game. That's not something you'll see in other RPGs. It's not something you'll see in shooters. It's not something you'll see in hack or slash. That's something that is exclusive to the Souls series so far from what I've seen. Maybe somebody can prove me wrong, or they want to share a different experience they've had. But the point is that's what we're gonna see now in the Souls game. You're gonna see this guy, he's taking off his freaking pants because it makes him run too slow.
This is the first level here, right?
This is the first level, and this is after the tutorial, but the first official world.
Yeah, right. So yeah, you see right there, that move. You see, he's taking the so he's walking up to these zombie characters, right? That they just have like little swords or whatever. They're not that big of a threat, and he's killing them in one hit. He just killed one in one hit, but then it freaked out instantly, and then half his health bar's gone. He managed to block before it got real bad.
So people understand it, especially for those who are listening in. In Demon Souls 1, which you'll see in the Soul series a lot, when you die and you return as like a spirit, you come in with half your health. You don't get the full health bar, and that's what's going on. He started off with half, but even then, that small portion of health that he has to make do with that. He has to figure out where to go, how to do it, how to get past the level, and get the souls to level up without dying. Because when you die, you lose all the souls, and then you have to go back. You have to try and grind all that out again, and you need those souls to level up. So you make no progress essentially. But that's what I said. That's what I said about the Barbarian Run. You don't need any of that to progress. The progression is you beating the world. However, you can use the overarching systems, which is leveling up, getting the right armor, getting the right weapon, leveling them up, refining them, if you wanted to improve your gameplay experience. But it's not necessary. And I think that's why a lot of other games struggle, because they require you to use their systems so much to get past the game that if they were to do something like no tutorial, like Demon Souls, to kind of make you figure it out, you'd really lose out on a lot of what the game is about. Because if you don't know about any of the systems, you miss out on what they intentionally wanted you to experience. In this game, they give you those overarching systems, but they put it on the side to allow you to enjoy and play the game how you want to play. And
I think one thing that's brilliant about it compared to a lot of other RPG games, like if you would be seeing the podcast right now, you'd notice that he actually knocked over one of the enemies into a pit, and then he knocked another guy off. Now he's regardless, he's just one-shotting all these enemies that are walking up to him. But I remember specifically that when I played, I would use classes that wouldn't just kill enemies instantly, and if I managed to knock these guys off a building or something, that would still give me a kill. So that adds another depth to your gameplay. And it doesn't feel, overly... It doesn't... I guess it has an... what it has about it that I like over The Division is that it does really feel like when you're fighting another humanoid-type character, that your sword is killing them as fast as a sword should.
It's the classic thing from Angry Joe. If anybody here is a fan of Angry Joe, I'm sure they've at one point seen their angry review. In one of his angry reviews, he talks about Metal Gear Rising, and how that hack and slasher for him was a great game, because it's the classic syndrome you get in a lot of other games, especially in RPGs, or
especially a Star Wars game, really.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of, where it's like the owl syndrome, and by that I mean it's like when you feel like you're hitting them with a blunt stick and you're not actually doing anything, you're just hitting a ragdoll with a blunt stick, versus what Ninja Gaiden and Devil May Cry feel sometimes, where you see blood coming out and you're cutting them and chopping them up. more like Ninja Gaiden, where you're literally dismembering the opponents. That's what it feels like in Demon Souls. You attack an enemy and they shrug, they fall over, they have a problem with the attack. They don't just sit there
and they die within a reasonable amount of hits. The reason why I use Star Wars as an example beforehand is because, you know, lightsabers are supposed to be basically like one of the most deadliest forms of melee weapons, where it's an assured instant dismemberment. Yet most Star Wars games manage to make it feel like you're getting hit by a baton or a bat or something, because it'll take like 2-3 hit combos to kill like a regular stormtrooper, and then they won't even lose a limb. And then you have a game like Demon Souls, which manages to actually be harder than a Star Wars game, but you're killing most of your enemies in 1 or 2 attacks. Now, the way that they end up balancing that is that typically weaker enemies will be in greater numbers. And also, you have to understand that you're human, so you also tend to die in 1 or 2 attacks. But then there will be a mini bosses and stuff that will take more hits for you to actually be able to kill them. Like, he just right now took down a mini boss in the first world there that was like a heavier set knight. If he would have kept trying to attack him from the front, it would have taken multiple hits, but he actually strategized, took his back, and then he landed a critical hit, stabbed him in the back, and then stabbed him again when he was on the ground, which was actually very smart.
Right, and then that's the thing about what we're trying to talk about. It's the difficulty should make you feel like you accomplished a challenge by learning how to play the game, rather than making you feel like you accomplished the challenge by using meta or just trying to meet stat requirements. It's supposed to challenge you to use the entire toolkit of what you have available, like your entire arsenal, rather than just using a one thing for the sake of using an exploitation in the game, or because it's the only viable thing. And that's a challenge too with a lot of games that have multiple guns or swords and shields and all these different things. They have to figure out how to balance all that so it's viable while you're playing the games.
Right. I guess the best way to express it is that we feel that it's never a good idea to force your players to do a certain thing. You know, we definitely appreciate freedom. I think that's something that we like a lot in our games. Yeah. So when we probably feel that when you make your difficulty, or you input difficulty into a game in a way that it forces you to ignore most of the other game, or like play a certain way, it feels too restrictive, and that could kind of make a game feel stale or repetitive, and you might lose the love for it at that point, despite the fact that it's giving you a greater challenge. There's like better ways to do it, I guess, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much what we wanted to put on difficulty. What's too much difficulty? What can be considered balance? What's considered fun? I mean, there's different ways to look at it. You guys might feel different. You guys might say, hey, Halo 2 Legendary is the best thing ever. I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. I might say, well, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not seeing it how you see it, but I disagree, because there's games like Demon Souls that do it right. You know? So yeah. These are all things that, I mean, you guys will have to put in your own opinions on what you think and share with us, you know, so we can kind of bounce off of you guys in the future episode. But to close it all off, I still say Halo 2 Legendary is not the best example. It might be fun, but it's not the best example of what difficulty would be.
I think Jordan just needs to grow a couple of chest hairs and actually sit down and try to beat it. Personally, I felt like it was rewarding. I understand that it's very difficult, but it makes it more rewarding for beating it in the end, you know? I'm not the type of the guy that will ever demand that a game be made easier for the sake of me being able to beat it. Just as long as, like, I don't know, it's not something unfair, like when I go to play a multiplayer or something, you get a legendary super mega gun that, you know, destroys the game or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's it's unfortunate. It's just our setup.
Yeah, I think what I'll do for the next episode is either I'll put Jordan's noise gate up, or I'll have him mute whenever he's quiet. I think that's gonna be the best solution.
Yeah. But yeah, like going off on the thing, like I know when you're saying that the Halo 2 Legendary feels rewarding when you go through the challenge, because it feels like you're trying to be you're accomplishing something that you normally wouldn't have been able to do. But the problem is, it goes again to the thing, you were playing literally Devil May Cry 3 on normal, but because it became such a long and very obstructive experience with learning how to fight the enemies and learning the mechanics and all that, it just took too long, and you eventually just the experience fell off. You know, maybe someday you might feel encouraged to go back, and after this conversation, you might be like, "Damn, I'm play." But that's what it does to you, and that's how I feel about Halo 2 Legendary. But the fact that I know I might be able to do it if I spend the time and learned it, the amount of time I would have to spend on it, it's just I could spend it playing a game that I'll have more fun with, that'll be more rewarding as I go through it, and no, that's my closing comment on that.
Okay, I think that's pretty fair. You guys let us know what you thought about the discussion in the comments down below. If you're watching on YouTube, remember you could also come watch our podcast on Spotify. You can also watch it on iTunes, really any platform that takes podcasts. We're going to be uploading this to. Also, consider watching us while we record this podcast live at twitch.tv/Co-OpSyndicate. That's CoopSyndicate. You could also follow us on Discord and Patreon if you'd like to support us. We do have many different tiers there with different rewards for anyone who wants to financially support the podcast. That would be greatly appreciated. We do love all our patrons, our viewers, and our listeners. So check that out if you'd like. That would be patreon.com/Co-OpSyndicate. You could find all these in the links in the description. If you're on YouTube, you could also find it in the About Me section if you're on Twitch. And if you're interested, remember to check out our merch as well. I'll give you the link to that in just a second. Of course, you could always find it in the description and the About Me section if you're on Twitch again. But if you're just listening and you'd like the link, that would be https://merch.streamelements.com/co-op syndicate. Again, that's https://merch.streamelements.com/co-op syndicate. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys for coming in, viewing, and listening as well. I've been your co-host, Michael C. Moore.
And I'm your other co-host, Jordan G. Marcos.
And we hope you guys have a wonderful day.
And before we cut off, real quick, a little bit of a post-scriptum. In a future episode, we are going to be talking about what people were asking for, which is difficulty in PvP versus like proper balancing. Just so you guys know, it's what we were mentioning. We're going to talk about topics like how much of a player base needs to be there for a system like that to work. How to properly rate it. Is it by skill set? Is it by kill? How many kills you get? How many wins you get versus losses? How to go up or down in tiers, and we're gonna definitely put Halo 2 and Halo 3 out there because I think those are the best at doing, or those were the best at doing that system in the first place. Other than that, get good. I think that's a knife cutting off point.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I've been your co-host, Michael C. Moore.
And I'm the other co-host, Jordan G. Marcos.
And we hope you guys have a wonderful day or night, whenever it is you're listening. Thank you guys so much. We love you. Peace.
Peace.
All right, not bad.